Chapter 846. After hearing L.V. Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered in his heart. No matter how nice L.V. Hushan's words were, he would never believe L.V. Hushan. The only thing he was sure of was that if he admitted these things, L.V. Hushan would probably turn hostile in the next moment and might even kill him directly. It was precisely because Yuan Weiqing knew that such a thing would happen that he would never say it out loud. Unless Yuan Weiqing now had the upper hand, there would be no problem even if he said it out loud. That was why he would say it out loud. From the beginning, after L.V. Hushan came to the secret Thunder sect in the South region, Yuan Weiqing saw that he was honest and felt that he should be trustworthy, so he let him do the logistics work to get closer to him. However, Yuan Weiqing never thought that L.V. Hushan, who looked honest, wasn't an easy person to deal with. He caused trouble everywhere. He was very dissatisfied with Yuan Weiqing's kind arrangement of him to do the logistics work, and he even spoke ill of Yuan Weiqing. At that time, Yuan Weiqing dared to swear that he really wanted to get closer to L.V. Hushan. He definitely did not want to set him up. In fact, everyone knew that no one was willing to do missions, especially those dangerous missions, because after going, they might not be able to come back. It was precisely for this reason that everyone wanted to do the logistics work. After all, doing the logistics work was easy and not dangerous. It was indeed the best job for the team. At that time, Yuan Weiqing still remembered very clearly that he was kind enough to let L.V. Hushan do the logistics work. In the end, many people were dissatisfied because everyone wanted to do this work, so they complained. Although Yuan Weiqing tried his best to appease everyone's emotions, the truth was in front of them, and everyone was still very dissatisfied. At this time, if L.V. Hushan treated everyone better and did the logistics work more thoroughly, everyone's complaints would slowly fade away. There would not be any major problems. However, no one knew what L.V. Hushan was thinking. No matter what he did, he was dissatisfied. Even when he boiled some hot water for everyone, he felt that everyone was setting him up and bullying him. Just like what L.V. Hushan had just said, Little Seven was seriously injured in an operation. After he was brought back, he wanted to use hot water to wipe his wounds. Thus, everyone asked L.V. Hushan, who was in charge of logistics, to boil some hot water. In the end, L.V. Hushan refused and said that everyone treated him like a servant. For this matter, L.V. Hushan and the other team members fought fiercely. His martial arts were slightly better, so every time they fought, as long as the other party did not have many people, he could basically gain the upper hand and teach the other party a lesson. However, Yuan Weiqing was very clear that the more L.V. Hushan beat the other party, the more the other party would hate him. Yuan Weiqing had also secretly looked for L.V. Hushan and hinted to L.V. Hushan that she should get along well with everyone and not make everyone unhappy. In the end, L.V. Hushan didn't listen to them. He only thought that everyone was bullying him. Therefore, he requested not to do this logistics work anymore. He wanted to do dangerous missions. After Yuan Weiqing persuaded him a few times, he had no choice but to let him do dangerous missions. However, even if L.V. Hushan was asked to do dangerous missions, he was still very dissatisfied. This was because when he was doing logistics work, he had already offended all the team members. When he was doing dangerous missions, no one was willing to help or accompany him on the mission. Yuan Weiqing still remembered very clearly that when L.V. Hushan went to do a dangerous mission, Yuan Weiqing felt that this mission was a little difficult, so he asked Little Seven to accompany him and complete this mission. However, how could Little Seven go? When he was injured in the past, he wanted L.V. Hushan to boil some hot water for him, but L.V. Hushan did not agree. Because of this, he even injured his companion. Until now, Little Seven was still feeling guilty. Therefore, it was absolutely impossible for Little Seven to accompany L.V. Hushan on a mission. Little Seven had even said that if he was forced to go, he would rather leave the secret Thunder sect in the South County than go. All the team members had this mentality. Yuan Weiqing had no choice. Since L.V. Hushan insisted on going, he could only let him go. However, under such circumstances, L.V. Hushan was in danger and still wanted to find trouble with him. He said that he was unfair to him and deliberately set him up. Yuan Weiqing was sure that LV Hushan had told many people that he had set him up because many people had said the same thing to him. At that time, Yuan Weiqing really regretted it. He was kind enough to think for LV Hushan, but he never expected that things would turn out like this. Most importantly, after LV Hushan became the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County, he always invited him to drink. After drinking, he felt uncomfortable every time. By chance, he accidentally talked about this matter with a friend. In the end, after his friend investigated in detail, he finally found out that LV Hushan had actually put the feces of a wild bear in the wine. If one ate too much of the feces of a wild bear, it would cause one's martial arts to stagnate. If one ate too much, it would cause one's strength to decrease. The more one ate, the more one's strength would decrease. At first, Yuan Weiqing did not believe that this was true. However, after careful observation, he realized that what his friend said was true. This was because his friend had once said that although the feces of a wild bear had an effect after eating honey, it would cancel each other out and there would be no effect. Yuan Weiqing had noticed several times that LV Hushan would eat some dishes made with honey after drinking wine. Only then did he realize that what his friend said was true. LV Hushan was setting him up. Yuan Weiqing could not understand how a person like LV Hushan could be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. Therefore, once when he drank too much, he went to home Master Shui and said that LV Hushan's martial arts were not high and was not suitable to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. He also mentioned a few names, saying that these people were much stronger than LV Hushan. Unfortunately, home Master Shui ignored his words. LV Hushan was still sitting firmly in the position of the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. As time passed, LV Hushan invited Yuan Weiqing to drink more and more. However, Yuan Weiqing would definitely not be grateful to LV Hushan because he knew that every glass of wine he drank was mixed with the feces of a wild bear. By chance, perhaps because he had drunk too much, Yuan Weiqing told his cousin about this matter. He also said that as long as LV Hushan died, he would tell Home Master Shui to let his cousin be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. Perhaps it was because of this reason that his cousin told others about this matter and aroused LV Hushan's suspicion. Seeing that LV Hushan's evil intentions did not change, Yuan Weiqing was finally angry. Therefore, he listened to his friend's suggestion and bought the medicine that could attract bees. When LV Hushan went to Green Mountain, he gave it to him, hoping that the bees on Green Mountain could solve this big problem. This was also a helpless action. Yuan Weiqing really had no other choice. They were all members of the secret thunder sect in the South County. He could not say it openly, so he could only do it secretly. Unfortunately, LV Hushan's luck was too good. He failed several times in a row. This time, Yuan Weiqing planned to continue to think of ways to deal with LV Hushan after he returned. However, he did not expect such a thing to happen. If it was in the past, when his martial arts had not faded, Yuan Weiqing would definitely have told LV Hushan the truth and let him know. Therefore, although some things were done by him, it was absolutely not his fault because the person who should be the first to apologize to the other party should be LV Hushan. The most important thing was that LV Hushan was not his opponent in the past. Even if he was angry, he could not do anything to him. But now, Yuan Weiqing's martial arts had declined too much. In addition, LV Hushan had the support of Deputy Hall Master Zhang. Yuan Weiqing was sure that once they fell out, he would definitely be the one who would suffer. Therefore, Yuan Weiqing could only grit his teeth and not admit it. This was the best way. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. After this matter was over, he must get rid of this bad guy in front of him so that he would not cause trouble for him. This time, if it were not for LV Hushan, how could he fall into such a plight? Thinking of the bad things that LV Hushan had done, Yuan Weiqing's lungs were about to explode, but there was nothing he could do. He could only endure, hoping to get through this suffering as soon as possible. Yuan Weiqing looked up at LV Hushan and shook his head. LV Hushan, to be honest, I really haven't done anything wrong to you. I still hope that you can believe me. After all, we are all friends. How could I harm you? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, if you don't admit it, I can't do anything to you. Let me tell you, I have a lot of ways to deal with you, but I want to hear you admit it yourself. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, I didn't do it. Why should I admit it? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he sneered and continued. LV Hushan, you're always saying that I'm harming you. Then let me ask you this. You put wildlands feces in my wine. Isn't that harming me? You only think of the bad things about me. Why haven't you ever thought of what you've done to me? LV Hushan, if there is a cause, there must be an effect. Do you understand what this means? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you. The reason I put wilderness bear excrement in the wine was because you wanted to harm me? That's why I did it. Otherwise, do you think I was willing to eat wilderness bear excrement? Humph, I accompanied you to eat it for so long. Unfortunately, you were fine. What a pity. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing waved his hand. LV Hushan, before you invite me to eat wilderness bear excrement, I want to ask you, what did I do wrong to make you hate me so much? LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, since I came to the secret thunder sect in the south region, you have been scheming against me. Do you think I don't know? Yuan Weiqing smiled bitterly and shook his head. LV Hushan, I don't understand. When you came to the secret thunder sect in the south region, I saw your thick eyebrows, big eyes, and honest appearance. I thought you were a good friend, so I let you do the easiest job. However, have you ever thanked me? Have you ever treated me as a real friend? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment. However, he did not wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued. No, LV Hushan, you've never been grateful to me. You've never treated me as a real friend. Everything you've done is to scheme against me. Now, you're actually saying that I'm scheming against you. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, when I came to the secret thunder sect in the south region, you told me that logistics work was the best job. It was easy and without danger. I really believed you at that time. However, you lied to me. Doing logistics work means being ordered around. What kind of good job is this? If you told me the truth and told me that I couldn't do a good job, I would accept it. After all, I just came here. However, you lied to me. You tricked me and wanted to thank you. Yuan Weiqing, do you think this is possible? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing let out a sigh and said slowly, LV Hushan, you think too much. If the logistics work is not a good job, then let me ask you, is there a better task in our team? LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Of course there is. Yuan Weiqing, if I didn't know, I wouldn't be angry. However, now that I know, I will naturally be angry. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. He then turned to look at LV Hushan and asked doubtfully, LV Hushan, I don't understand what you're talking about. Is there any job easier than logistics in our squad? That's right. LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, do you still want to lie to me? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, since you don't admit it, then let me ask you, is old Zhang's job easy? Old Zhang? Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, are you talking about old Zhang in our team? LV Hushan nodded and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you won't deny that old Zhang's job is easy, right? Hearing LV Hushan's greeting, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. He turned to look at LV Hushan and sighed. LV Hushan, do you really think that old Zhang's job is easy? LV Hushan nodded. Of course, old Zhang just records the tasks he receives in his book every day. Then, whoever does the task will be marked. This is his job. Yuan Weiqing, you won't tell me that old Zhang's job is actually not easy, much more difficult than logistics work, right? Yuan Weiqing let out a sigh. LV Hushan, I admit that the easiest job in our squad is old Zhang. It could even be said that old Zhang's job is even easier than mine. Of course, it's easier than logistics. Hearing Yuan Weiqing admit it, LV Hushan immediately snorted. Yuan Weiqing, why don't you defend yourself? I'm surprised that you admit it so readily. Yuan Weiqing shook his head slowly. Chapter 847. Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan. He sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, have you ever paid attention to old Zhang's walking posture? LV Hushan was stunned and then sneered. Of course I paid attention. He's just a cripple. Do you think I didn't see it? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, do you know why old Zhang's leg was crippled? Hearing this, LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, what does old Zhang's leg have to do with me? Yuan Weiqing sighed. Old Zhang's leg has nothing to do with you, but it has a lot to do with the Tanlei sect in the South County. Do you know that? LV Hushan was a little surprised. Could it be that old Zhang's leg was injured in the Tanlei sect in the South County? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, you're right. Old Zhang was injured because of the Tanlei sect in the South County. His leg was also crippled at that time. Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued to speak. LV Hushan, what do you think of old Zhang's martial arts? LV Hushan frowned. Although I haven't had much contact with him, I feel that his martial arts are very ordinary. He's far worse than me, right? Yuan Weiqing nodded and said with a wry smile, do you know that before old Zhang was injured, his martial arts were higher than Home Master Shui's? What? LV Hushan was shocked. Yuan Weiqing, what did you say? Old Zhang's martial arts were higher than Home Master Shui's? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, although I came earlier than you, I didn't experience this matter. I heard it from others. When old Zhang came to the Tanlei sect in the South County, his martial arts were quite high. He was almost the best in the Tanlei sect in the South County. At that time, the Home Master decided to let him be the Deputy Home Master, but during that time, something happened to the Tanlei sect in the South County. As for what happened, I don't know. I only know that after that incident, old Zhang went missing. After a long time, old Zhang finally appeared. However, he had lost 70 to 80% of his martial arts, perhaps even more. One of his legs was also lame. Some people said that although old Zhang's martial arts had weakened and his legs were crippled, the Hall Master at that time still wanted him to be the Deputy Hall Master. Old Zhang refused and insisted on doing some ordinary work. At that time, the Hall Master had no choice but to let him do the job he's doing now. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, old Zhang can sit in that position because he has made great contributions. You're just a newcomer. Do you think you can do that job? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, old Zhang is really something. Why does he still come out to do things when he has been seriously injured? The point is that he still occupies that position. Don't you think so? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's face changed, and then he waved his hand. LV Hushan, the reason why I told you this is to let you know that in our team, the logistics work you do is the best job. Do you understand? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, don't lie to me. Do you think I will still believe you? Yuan Weiqing waved his hand. LV Hushan, I don't care if you believe me or not. I can assure you that I have never cheated you. LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, I don't want to pursue it anymore. I just want to know if you did those things. Can you let me know? Yuan Weiqing sneered in his heart. LV Hushan, I understand what you mean. However, I didn't do anything. Now you should understand, right? LV Hushan frowned and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, since you said that you had nothing to do with this matter, then your cousin must be lying, right? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was stunned and then asked, LV Hushan, what else did my cousin say? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, your cousin is much more straightforward than you. As long as I ask him, he will obediently tell me everything. Yuan Weiqing, your cousin has told me everything about you. Even if you don't admit it, do you think I will still believe you? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, my cousin is talking nonsense. Why do you believe him? LV Hushan sighed. I have said that I will not pursue these things. Why do you still refuse to admit it? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, I didn't do it. Why should I admit it? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, do you remember that I just said that when I went to the East County, someone was chasing me? Yuan Weiqing was taken aback, but there was no change on his face. He asked with a smile, LV Hushan, what's wrong? Do you also suspect that I did this? LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, in fact, this is not a suspicion. I can already be sure that you did this. Even if you don't admit it, do you think I can't recognize you because you are wearing a mask? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, although you are wearing a mask and I can't recognize you from your appearance, we have been together for so long. Do you think I can't recognize you from your movements and martial arts? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is this possible? You can recognize me just by my movements. Isn't this a joke? LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, when you were chasing me, you really didn't use your usual martial arts. It may also be because of this reason that although your martial arts are higher than mine, you didn't use your usual martial arts, so you weren't much stronger than me. In order to chase me, you even went into battle yourself. I also want to ask you, how did I offend you to make you hate me so much? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. He thought that this matter would not be discovered by LV Hushan, but he did not expect that it was still discovered by him. Thinking of this matter, Yuan Weiqing sighed secretly in his heart. At the same time, he was also annoyed. LV Hushan was definitely not a good guy. Although he had thick eyebrows and big eyes and looked like an honest guy, Yuan Weiqing was sure that he was not a good guy. As long as LV Hushan returned to the secret Thunder sect in the South County, he would definitely speak ill of him to others. He would even tell others that he had secretly harmed him. Although he did do such a thing, if Yuan Weiqing did not always harm him, how could he harm him? For a period of time, LV Hushan almost told everyone what he had done. In the end, Yuan Weiqing could not bear it anymore. In addition, he could not think of any other way, so he could only chase after LV Hushan himself. However, he did not expect that although LV Hushan was not a good person, his luck was really good. He fell from such a high cliff, and nothing happened to him. He returned half a year later. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing secretly regretted it. If he had known earlier, he would have gone down the cliff to look for LV Hushan to avoid endless troubles in the future. Seeing Yuan Weiqing lowering his head and not saying anything, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you can't deny it this time, right? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly raised his head and waved his hand. LV Hushan, why should I admit it? I didn't do it. Why should I admit it? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I remember that there were two people at that time. Your cousin has already said that one of the two people was you and the other was your cousin. Yuan Weiqing, I also recognize the martial arts you used at that time. Although it was not the martial arts you usually use, I can still recognize your movements. And your cousin, he has already told me this matter in detail. He even clearly told me what you said when you were waiting for me. Now that the evidence is conclusive, Yuan Weiqing, do you still want to quibble? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly looked at LV Hushan and was stunned. He immediately waved his hand and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, do you believe what my cousin said? LV Hushan sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, your cousin is very obedient at my place. His words are worthy of my belief, but I don't believe what you said. Yuan Weiqing sighed and slowly said, LV Hushan, if I didn't guess wrong, you must have used some tricks on my cousin, right? Yuan Weiqing, you are really smart. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan immediately applauded and said with a smile, Yuan Weiqing, you are really smart. It seems that only you know your cousin the best. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment. But then, he did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, your cousin didn't want to say anything at first, but I used a little trick and he immediately became obedient. As long as I wanted to know something, he would obediently tell me. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's heart immediately burned with anger. LV Hushan, I admit that I have treated you well. I didn't expect you to use a little trick on my cousin. Are you worthy of me? LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I also thought that I had wronged you. But after I heard your cousin's words, I suddenly felt that you had wronged me. You're not a good friend. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, do you know that at that time my cousin's words can't be taken seriously? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, but I think that what he said is stronger than what you said. You are constantly lying, but he is telling the truth. Who do you think I should believe? Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, what did my cousin say? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, let's not talk about other things first. I just want to ask you, what else do you want to quibble about, you and your cousin chasing me? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, I'm sorry. You have the wrong person. The thieves you met on the road were definitely not me. Please believe me. How could I do that kind of thing? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, your cousin doesn't know where I was attacked, right? Yuan Weiqing nodded. That's right. He hasn't been there before. How could he know where you were attacked? LV Hushan clenched his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, your cousin doesn't know where I was ambushed, but the location he mentioned is very correct. Think about it. If he hasn't been to that place, how could he say the correct location? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was taken aback, and his brows furrowed tightly. What LV Hushan said was right. It was indeed done by him and his cousin. The reason why Yuan Weiqing asked his cousin to go with him was that he had made up his mind to get rid of LV Hushan this time. In order to be safe, Yuan Weiqing brought his cousin along. He also told his cousin that as long as LV Hushan was killed, the position of the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County would most likely be his. It was because of this promise that Yuan Weiqing's cousin agreed to go with him. Unfortunately, although the two of them went together, they still failed. What should he do? LV Hushan already knew about this matter. How should he explain it? It was impossible to admit it. Yuan Weiqing knew very well that if he admitted it, LV Hushan would definitely not let him go. Therefore, he absolutely could not admit it. However, if he did not admit it, how could he explain it? Seeing that Yuan Weiqing did not answer him, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I advise you not to think of ideas. It's useless because no matter what ideas you come up with, I will never believe you. Now that things have come to this, Yuan Weiqing, you can only admit it because you did it. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is that possible? When you went to the East County to do the mission, I should have set off to do the mission elsewhere. How could I have time to chase after you? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing felt that he had found a reason and hurriedly continued. LV Hushan, think about it. I really didn't have time to chase after you. If I chase after you, what about my mission? LV Hushan, do you know that when you went to the East County to do the mission, I also set off to do the mission with you? My mission was very urgent and could not be delayed. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan and said with a smile, LV Hushan, you see, I didn't have time to chase after you. You should also know that my mission was completed on time and I didn't waste any time. LV Hushan, under such circumstances, if I chase after you, I definitely won't be able to complete my mission. Don't you think so? Please believe me, I really didn't do this. Otherwise, you can go back and check the records of this mission. You should be very clear that the matter of chasing you was definitely not done by me. Chapter 848. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment. He had some doubts in his heart. Yuan Weiqing was right. At that time, when Yang Ming went to do this mission, his cousin seemed to have gone to do the mission. It was said that it was a relatively difficult mission. Since both sides went to do the mission, and Yuan Weiqing's mission had a time limit, then logically, he had no time to chase Yang Ming. If he chased Yang Ming, he had no time to do the mission. If he did the mission, he had no time to chase Yang Ming. Wasn't this contradictory? Could it be that Yuan Weiqing's cousin was really lying to him? Thinking of this, LV Hushan's brows gradually frowned. He shook his head hard in his heart. Impossible. Yuan Weiqing's cousin wouldn't lie to him. It should be Yuan Weiqing who was lying to him. Although he didn't know what method Yuan Weiqing used, LV Hushan was sure that Yuan Weiqing must have used some method to do the mission and chase Yang Ming at the same time. But what method was it? Yuan Weiqing saw LV Hushan lowering his head and sneered in his heart. In order to guard against this, he had already made arrangements. How could he let LV Hushan find out? LV Hushan, I know you're still doubting, but the facts are in front of you. No matter how much you doubt me, I can't do this. Please believe me. I'm not the kind of person you think. We're friends. How could I harm you? Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly raised his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, although I don't know how you did it, I can be sure that you must have a way to do this. Because your cousin told me that it was the two of you who chased me. There is absolutely no mistake. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, let's make an example. If I caught you and wanted you to say something, would you say it? LV Hushan was stunned. Yuan Weiqing, what do you mean? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, I don't mean anything. I just want to tell you that after you played a trick on my cousin, I believe that he will tell you whatever you want him to say. Hearing this, LV Hushan's expression suddenly changed. Yuan Weiqing, you mean to say that your cousin lied to me? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, maybe my cousin didn't want to lie to you. I believe that he wouldn't admit it at the beginning because we didn't do it. Why should he admit it? But perhaps your little trick was too powerful and he really couldn't bear it. In order to lessen the pain, he could only follow your words. LV Hushan, do you understand now? What my cousin said isn't true. It's just that your little tricks are too powerful, so he had no choice but to tell some lies. Hearing this, LV Hushan couldn't help but frown. He secretly recalled the process at that time, and his expression became more and more ugly. Yuan Weiqing was right. At that time, Yuan Weiqing's cousin refused to say anything. In desperation, he did use a very fierce little trick. Then, Yuan Weiqing's cousin said what he wanted to hear under his guidance. Could it be that the reason why Yuan Weiqing's cousin said those words was because of his little tricks? If this was true, then what Yuan Weiqing's cousin said under his little tricks might not be the truth. Maybe it was like what Yuan Weiqing said. He just had to tell some lies to lessen some pain. No, LV Hushan thought carefully, but he rejected this idea because he was sure that what Yuan Weiqing's cousin said was true. However, if Yuan Weiqing wanted to chase him, he couldn't do the task. The key was that he completed the task on time, and he didn't delay chasing him. How'd he do it? Thinking of this, LV Hushan looked up at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, you are really amazing. I don't know what method you came up with. You can actually chase me while doing the task. I really didn't expect you to go through so much trouble to deal with me. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, we have already made it clear. This matter has nothing to do with me. You should be very clear that since I can complete the task on time, it is impossible for me to have time to chase you. Unless I could do the task at the same time when I chase you. Otherwise, it is absolutely impossible. Don't you understand? Do the task at the same time? Hearing this, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment, then said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I understand. The task you're doing must be to go to the East County. When you are chasing me, you have time to do the task, right? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, how is this possible? When you went to the East County to do the task, did you know what I was doing? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, let me tell you, I went to the Green Mountain. Do you know that when you went to the East County, I went to the Green Mountain to get the green, or the East County you went to is in the east, and the Green Mountain I went to is in the west. Think about it. The two of us were doing the task in the east and the other in the west. When I was chasing you, how do you think I could do the task at the same time? Green Mountain? Hearing this address from Yuan Weiqing, LV Hushan's frown deepened. He naturally knew about the Green Mountain because he also went there. Because of the bees, he didn't come back. How could he forget? The Green Mountain was in the west. This was absolutely correct. And the East County was in the east. This was even more true. According to the two addresses, if Yuan Weiqing wanted to get the green, or it was absolutely impossible for him to come to the East County to chase him. And if he wanted to chase him, he absolutely had no time to go to the Green Mountain to get the green organ. What was going on? If the two addresses were relatively close, there would be some possibility. Yuan Weiqing was doing the task while chasing him, but the addresses of the two tasks were in the east and west. It was impossible for him to do the task at the same time and chase him. Could it be that he really misunderstood Yuan Weiqing? In fact, Yuan Weiqing didn't chase him. It was just that he was unlucky and was chased by the bandits all the way to the bottom of the cliff. LV Hushan felt a headache coming on. He couldn't figure out what was going on. Yuan Weiqing was the one who should take action the most, but he was the one who had the least time. Could it be that he was wrong? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, "I know you misunderstood me and thought that I was chasing you, but let me tell you, I didn't do it because I didn't have the time to do it." Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, think about it. Do you have other enemies? When you went to the East County, did these enemies do it? Enemies? LV Hushan was stunned, then shook his head and said with a sneer, "Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. How can I have enemies? This matter was clearly done by you. Do you still want to quibble?" After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I've already said that I didn't do it. You better think about who might have done this. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, think about it carefully. Is it possible that this matter was done by the bandit leader, Boss Liu? Bandit leader, Boss Liu? LV Hushan just pondered for a moment, then immediately shook his head. Impossible. How could the bandit leader, Boss Liu, know the time and route of my mission? Speaking of this, LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, don't you think it's strange? No matter where I go, those two people can find me. Can you tell me why? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how could I know? Maybe they have been chasing you, so they can find you? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, what you said is wrong. I remember several times I got rid of them, but when I wanted to complete the mission, they could always catch up. If they didn't know my route, how could they know where I was going? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, maybe it's luck, or maybe the people chasing you are not in the same group. Maybe the people you met on the way to the East County are not the people who chase you later. If that's the case, isn't there a reasonable explanation? LV Hushan shook his head. No, from the beginning, there were two people who attacked me. Until the end, it was those two people who were chasing me. This is definitely true. Yuan Weiqing, do you really think that I can't recognize you? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's face suddenly changed, and he hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, what are you talking about? How could such a thing happen? I have already said that I didn't do it. It must be someone else. For example, the bandit leader, Boss Liu, I just mentioned. He is very likely to do this kind of thing. Don't you believe me? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, you also know how miserable we have caused the bandit leader, Boss Liu. Do you think that he won't hate us? So I think it is very likely that he did it. Don't you believe me? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, although the bandit leader, Boss Liu, hates us, he doesn't know my route. He may be able to attack me once, but how can he find me again? So I think this is definitely not done by the bandit leader, Boss Liu, but by you. Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, do you think that the bandit leader, Boss Liu, can't do this? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, what ability does the bandit leader, Boss Liu, have to do this? I don't believe it. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, then you underestimate the bandit leader, Boss Liu. Although his martial arts are not as good as mine, it is almost the same as yours. In addition, he is a bandit and has some tracking methods. Is there anything strange about this? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, let me ask you, if the bandit leader, Boss Liu, doesn't have any methods, why can't we find him? Does this prove that he is very good at this kind of thing? Hearing this, LV Hushan frowned. He had to admit that what Yuan Weiqing said was very reasonable. The bandit leader, Boss Liu, had been a bandit for many years. Naturally, he was very knowledgeable about this kind of thing. If he was the one chasing after him, it was really possible for him to find him by following the clues he left behind. Seeing that LV Hushan lowered his head and remained silent, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, there's one thing you might not have thought of. Did you notice that the bandit leader, Boss Liu, has a similar figure to me? What? Hearing this, LV Hushan was suddenly shocked. Yuan Weiqing, what did you say? You said that the bandit leader, Boss Liu, is the one chasing after me? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, you are right. Think about it carefully. The bandit leader, Boss Liu, has a similar figure to me. If you are mistaken, there is actually a high possibility that it is him. Don't you think so? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, when they attacked you for the first time, your kung fu was not as good as theirs. In your panic, you saw the masked bandit leader, Big Boss LV, and you thought he was me. You thought it was me who did all this. But in fact, it had nothing to do with me, because I was completing the mission of Green Mountain. How could I come to the East County to attack you? LV Hushan, don't doubt it anymore. This matter is definitely not done by me. It must be done by the bandit leader, Boss Liu. There is no mistake about it. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan thought about it carefully. Suddenly, he sneered and turned to look at Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing, you still want to lie to me, right? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I said that this matter was not done by me. Why do you always think that I am lying to you? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you said that the bandit leader, Boss Liu, has a similar figure to you. But when I thought about the situation when the two of us besieged them, I found that although the two of you are about the same, he is shorter than you. You can't deny this, right? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's face suddenly changed. Chapter 849. Seeing Yuan Weiqing's expression change, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you have nothing to say now, right? Yuan Weiqing thought quickly in his heart. Suddenly, his heart moved. He hurriedly looked up at LV Hushan and said with a smile, LV Hushan, why do I have nothing to say? Think about it carefully. The bandit boss LV is not much shorter than me. If the two of us stand together, you may be able to tell that he is shorter than me. But if the two of us don't stand together, I think you won't be able to tell so clearly, right? Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly froze. His eyebrows gradually frowned, and then he sneered, Yuan Weiqing, don't quibble. Let me tell you, the bandit boss LV is shorter than you. Even if the two of you don't stand together, I can still tell. At this moment, Yuan Weiqing thought of this method and had completely calmed down. He smiled and waved his hand. LV Hushan, are you really sure that you can tell the two of us just by our height? LV Hushan nodded. Of course, the two of you are different in height. I just need to take a look, and I will definitely be able to tell. Yuan Weiqing sighed and picked up two small wooden sticks from the ground. He divided the length of the two small wooden sticks and raised them in front of LV Hushan. He smiled and asked, LV Hushan, look, are these two small wooden sticks the same length? LV Hushan glanced at him and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, don't tell me that I can't even tell this? Of course, one is long and one is short. Yuan Weiqing nodded and then put the two small wooden sticks behind him. Not long after, he took out another small wooden stick and asked with a smile, LV Hushan, since you can tell the length, then tell me, should the small wooden stick in my hand be long or short? This, looking at the two small wooden sticks in Yuan Weiqing's hand, LV Hushan was a little dumbfounded. When two small wooden sticks were put together and compared with each other, it was naturally clear that the length was long and short. However, if one small wooden stick was taken out alone, it would be difficult to tell. Seeing that LV Hushan was not lying, Yuan Weiqing smiled. LV Hushan, didn't you say that you can tell the difference? Then hurry up and do it. Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued to speak. Of course, don't make a mistake. Otherwise, the consequences will be very serious. Listening to Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's eyes were fixed on the small wooden stick in Yuan Weiqing's hand. Not long after, his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Yuan Weiqing, I only took a glance. How can I tell? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing nodded. He then took out another small wooden stick and placed it in front of his eyes. He then said with a smile, LV Hushan, this time you can look at it for a while longer until you say it's done. In this way, you should be able to distinguish it, right? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and stared at the two small sticks in front of him. He wanted to find some characteristics on the two small sticks so that he could distinguish the length. However, the more LV Hushan looked at it, the more confused he became. He couldn't tell the difference no matter how hard he tried. For a moment, he was so anxious that he broke out in cold sweat. Seeing that LV Hushan still couldn't make up his mind, Yuan Weiqing smiled. LV Hushan, it's been so long. Don't tell me you still haven't figured it out? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Okay, you can take it back now. I'll look at it again. Yuan Weiqing nodded and put the two small sticks behind him again. Then he held a small stick in front of him and said with a smile, LV Hushan, guess. Look at the small stick in my hand. Is it long or short? Looking at the small stick in Yuan Weiqing's hand, LV Hushan was dumbfounded again. No matter how well he remembered, once there were no two small sticks to compare with each other, it wouldn't be easy to distinguish which one was long and which one was short. Seeing that LV Hushan just stared at the small stick in his hand and didn't speak, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, don't be embarrassed. You can't tell the difference. Just like me and the bandit leader boss Liu, when we stand together, you can tell that I'm taller than him. But if we don't stand together, you can't tell. This means that the person you saw was definitely not me, but the leader of the bandits, Boss Liu, whom you misjudged. LV Hushan, do you understand now? Shut up. LV Hushan snorted and pointed at the small stick in Yuan Weiqing's hand. He sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, the small stick in your hand is short, right? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. He was shocked. He didn't expect LV Hushan to be so lucky. He just said it casually and guessed it right. That's right, the small wooden stick in Yuan Weiqing's hand was the shorter wooden stick, and a longer wooden stick was currently in Yuan Weiqing's hand behind his back. Yuan Weiqing was surprised, but there was no change on his face. He smiled and asked, LV Hushan, you only have one chance. Think about it carefully. Is this small stick long or short? Originally, LV Hushan was full of confidence, but after hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, he was not confident anymore. He stared at the small stick in front of him and suddenly changed his mind. I was wrong. The small stick in your hand is long. Yuan Weiqing, am I right? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned once again. He sighed and moved his hands from behind his back to the front, putting the small wooden sticks in his hands together. LV Hushan, did you see? I'm holding a short one, but you said it was long. So, you were wrong. Looking at the two small sticks in Yuan Weiqing's hand, LV Hushan gritted his teeth and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I was fooled by you just now. I originally said it was short, but you lied to me and said it was long, so I lost. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, don't you admit it? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, let's guess again. If I'm wrong again, then you're right. Yuan Weiqing nodded. Well, since you want to guess again, then I promise you. While speaking, Yuan Weiqing put his hands behind his back again. When he was about to put his hands in front of him, LV Hushan suddenly said, Yuan Weiqing, this time you can't speak, lest I guess wrong again. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing nodded and said with a smile, Okay, LV Hushan, just guess. I won't say a word. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing sneered in his heart. If you guessed these two small sticks correctly, then it would be a big joke. LV Hushan nodded. Well, now you can put your hands in front of you. Yuan Weiqing slowly stretched out his hands behind his back. He didn't speak and just nodded to LV Hushan. LV Hushan ignored Yuan Weiqing. Looking at the small sticks in his hand, he frowned again. There was really no way to guess. He just took out a small stick, and there was nothing to compare it with. How about a guess? This time was the same as last time. LV Hushan frowned not long after. After a while, he raised his trembling hand and pointed at the small stick. Yuan Weiqing, the small stick in your hand is short, right? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing was stunned. Seeing this, LV Hushan was overjoyed. He sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, quickly take out your hand. Let me see if I guess correctly. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued. But I think I guessed correctly this time, haha. Yuan Weiqing frowned and asked slowly, LV Hushan, you really don't regret it? LV Hushan was stunned. Then he waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, I've already told you not to talk. Why are you still talking nonsense? Yuan Weiqing smiled apologetically. He put his hands behind his back and pinched the small wooden stick lightly. The small wooden stick silently broke into a section. Yuan Weiqing used his hand to crush the broken wooden stick. Only then did he place the broken wooden stick in front of him. LV Hushan, look, is a guess right or wrong? What? Seeing Yuan Weiqing holding the small stick in front of him, LV Hushan was shocked. His face became ugly. Yuan Weiqing, how could it be? How could I guess wrong again? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, do you understand now? Sometimes, what you see may not be true. Just like the wooden stick in front of you. You think it's short, but it's long. Just like when you see the person who chased you, you think that person's height is the same as mine. This is because you thought it was me from the beginning, so you think that this person's height is my height. Of course, this person is me. LV Hushan, now think carefully. If that person is the bandit leader, boss LV, isn't it very suitable? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. His brows gradually frowned, but he was thinking about the person who chased him. After a while, LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, how can I remember? So much time has passed. No matter how good my memory is, it is impossible to remember. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing nodded and said with a smile, LV Hushan, that's right. If you can remember, you will find that person's figure is really like the bandit leader, boss LV, right? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, you must have seen wrongly. That person is definitely not me. Do you believe me now? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan looked at the small stick in his hand again. He had some doubts in his heart. Could it be that I really saw wrongly? Just like the two small sticks in front of him, squid. At that time, Yuan Weiqing and the bandit leader, boss LV, were not together, so he could not accurately distinguish who the person in front of him was. Could it really be like this? If he was wrong about the height, then it could really be like what Yuan Weiqing said. The person who chased him at that time was the bandit leader, boss LV, and not Yuan Weiqing. However, although LV Hushan had doubts in his heart, he was only wondering why, because he was sure that the person who chased him at that time must be Yuan Weiqing. Seeing that LV Hushan did not speak, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, what I said is true. Why don't you believe me? Hearing this, LV Hushan raised his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sneered, because the person who chased me at that time was definitely you. It was definitely not the bandit leader, boss LV. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, you also saw it. You can't even distinguish the small stick in my hand. How can you distinguish me from the bandit leader, boss LV? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, I may not be able to distinguish the height of you and the bandit leader, boss LV, but there is one thing that I can distinguish. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was suddenly shocked and hurriedly asked, LV Hushan, what are you talking about? Why don't I understand? LV Hushan nodded and asked with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, could it be that the bandit leader, Boss LV, is your brother? Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment, then shook his head. LV Hushan, how is this possible? I didn't know the bandit leader, Boss LV, before. How can we be brothers? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, since you and the bandit leader, Boss LV, are not brothers, then why are your martial arts similar? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but immediately after, he did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, don't lie to me. It may be that I can't distinguish the height, but I know the martial arts of both of you. The person who chased me said that the martial arts he used was definitely not the martial arts used by the bandit leader, Boss LV. Yuan Weiqing, although I haven't been in contact with the bandit leader, Boss LV, for a long time, we have also fought. Naturally, I know his martial arts. As for the two of us, although we haven't fought, I've seen you display your martial arts before. I can't distinguish the height of you and the bandit leader, Boss LV, but I can distinguish the difference between the martial arts of both of you. I'm sure that the martial arts used by the person who chased me at that time was definitely not the martial arts used by the bandit leader, Boss LV. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned and quickly recalled in his heart. Did I use the martial arts that LV Hushan saw at that time? Yuan Weiqing thought for a moment in his heart. Then he let out a long sigh of relief. At that time, he was afraid that there would be an accident, so he did not use his most commonly used martial arts. It seemed that his worry at that time was correct. He did not let LV Hushan see his martial arts. However, it was because he did not use the martial arts that he was good at that LV Hushan escaped several times. This was also a mistake. Seeing Yuan Weiqing lowering his head and not speaking, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, this time you have nothing to say. I advise you to quickly admit it so that I won't be rude to you. Chapter 850. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment and then shook his head. LV Hushan, I have already said that that person is definitely not me. LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, since you said that it is not you, then tell me, who is that person? Yuan Weiqing frowned and said slowly, LV Hushan, then tell me, did you see that person's martial arts at that time? LV Hushan shook his head. I don't know what martial arts he used, but from his movements, this person is definitely you. Yuan Weiqing waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, have you ever thought that if two people learn saber skills at the same time, if they both practice to the peak, then their movements will be the same? Hearing these words, LV Hushan was stunned and then sneered. Yuan Weiqing, no, some of the movements and the details are definitely the same. You can't fool me about this. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you don't understand. The movements of the same martial arts are basically the same at the end. I'm afraid it's impossible for you to see someone's movements from this, right? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I won't be wrong. That person's figure and martial arts are definitely you. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, I have already said that I am going to do other tasks. How can I have time to deal with you? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. He did not wait for LV Hushan to answer his words and continued to speak. LV Hushan, I'm sure that these two people who are chasing you are definitely the bandit leader, Boss Liu. There is absolutely no mistake. LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. I have seen the bandit leader Boss Liu's martial arts. Let me tell you, the martial arts used by the people who are chasing me are definitely not the bandit leader Boss Liu's martial arts. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, I remember you said that there were two people chasing after you. Maybe the person who's been fighting with you is not the bandit leader, Boss LV, but his helper? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, and without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, think about it. The bandit leader LV Hushan's martial arts skills are similar to yours. It's absolutely impossible for him to deal with you alone, so he will definitely find help. And this helper's martial arts must be above his. That's why he dared to cause trouble for you. If I'm not wrong, the person you're fighting with is definitely not the bandit leader, Boss Liu. Instead, it's an even more powerful helper that he found to deal with you. Don't you think so? Most importantly, you've never seen this person's martial arts before, so I'm very sure that it's someone you've never seen before. It must be the helper that the bandit leader, Boss Liu, found. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. His brows gradually furrowed as he recalled what happened at that time. Yes, the martial arts used by that person was a martial arts that he had never seen before. It was not the martial arts commonly used by Yuan Weiqing, nor was it the martial arts used by the bandit leader, Boss Liu. Could it be that the person was really the helper that the bandit leader, Boss Liu, found? If this matter was explained in this way, everything would make sense. When LV Hushan set off for the East County, Yuan Weiqing also set off for the Green Mountain to do the task. LV Hushan encountered bandits on the way. These bandits were not Yuan Weiqing, but the bandit leader, Boss Liu, and his helper. LV Hushan and Yuan Weiqing once destroyed the bandit leader, Boss Liu's mountain stronghold. They naturally had a great hatred for him, so it was possible that they came to seek revenge. The most important thing was that the person who had been fighting with him used a martial arts that he had never seen before. This also proved that this person should not be Yuan Weiqing. When this matter was explained in this way, he felt that it was instantly clear, as if it was true. However, LV Hushan absolutely did not believe that this was true. No matter how plausible this explanation was, it was absolutely not like this, because he was sure that the person who did it must be Yuan Weiqing. This was because it was impossible for the bandit leader, Boss Liu, to know when he would leave for the East County and where he would be going. At that time, no matter what LV Hushan did, he would be caught by those two people in the end, so he was suspicious. Thinking of this, LV Hushan raised his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think you can fool me like this? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, this is absolutely impossible. If this was done by the bandit leader, Boss Liu, then tell me, how could he be so clear about my route? Don't tell me that they used to be bandits and knew this very well, so they could find me. Yuan Weiqing, I don't believe this. Even if they were bandits, it's impossible for them to be so clear about our route. So I'm sure that the person who chased me at that time must be you, who knew the route, so you could find me so quickly and accurately. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, why don't you believe me? You see, you have already admitted your mistake in terms of figure. In terms of martial arts, you are also very clear that there are many people with the same movements. The person at that time was definitely not me. As for the route you mentioned, do you think it is very complicated? Let me tell you, it's easy to know your route. What's more, Boss Liu used to be a bandit, so he knows this better. How could your route be hidden from him? LV Hushan, think about it carefully. The person who chased you at that time was definitely not me. It must be Boss Liu. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't expect you to still quibble. Your cousin said that you did it, but you didn't admit it. I said that the person who chased me had a similar figure to you, but you didn't admit it. Now, regarding my route, I didn't expect you to still deny it. Yuan Weiqing, you have to know that not many people know about my route this time. Other than you, I really can't think of anyone else who would do such a thing. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you think that not many people know about your route this time? LV Hushan nodded. Of course not, because the people who know about this matter are probably only the two of us and two hall masters. Only the four of us. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, I don't believe that Hall Master Xuen and Deputy Hall Master Zhang would do such a thing, so you're the only one left. Do you still want to quibble? Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, I've already told you that I didn't do it. You have to believe me. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan nodded and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, okay, I can believe you, but only the four of us know about this matter. Then tell me, besides you and me, who did this between Deputy Hall Master Zhang and Hall Master Shui? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned and secretly complained in his heart. Hall Master Shui and Deputy Hall Master Zhang naturally wouldn't do such a thing. They didn't have any enmity with LV Hushan. So how could they do this? So, I'm the only one left. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing's forehead gradually exuded cold sweat. He quickly thought in his heart, how can I push this matter out? Seeing that Yuan Weiqing lowered his head and didn't speak, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I know you're thinking of bad ideas, but I don't care. Because even if you quibble about this matter, I will never believe it. Because the only person who can do this is you. There is absolutely no one else. Yuan Weiqing, I advise you to quickly admit it and save both of us the trouble. I have already said that even if you admit it, I will never take revenge. I just want to know the truth. Do you understand? Tell me, what is the truth? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned, then waved his hand and said with a bitter smile, LV Hushan, I really didn't do this. How can I admit it? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, since you said that you didn't do this, then tell me, should this matter be done by Deputy Hall Master Zhang or Hall Master Shui? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned and then waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is this possible? They don't have any enmity with you. How can they do this kind of thing? LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, you are right, but only the four of us know about this matter. If the two of them didn't do this, do you think that this matter is done by me and has nothing to do with you? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he laughed and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, you're really interesting. Are you going to say that it was me who fought with myself, and that there was no one else, and that I made all of this up? Is that it? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, you misunderstood. I didn't mean that. I just wanted to say that this matter was neither done by Hall Master Shui nor Deputy Hall Master Zhang. It was done by the bandit leader, Boss Liu. Do you understand? Bandit leader, Boss Liu? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan snorted coldly. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't expect you to still want to quibble under such circumstances. You want to push this matter to the bandit leader, Boss Liu? Let me tell you, this is impossible because only the four of us know about this matter. Only the four of us know about my route. Yuan Weiqing, let me ask you, under such circumstances, how did the bandit leader, Boss Liu, know about my route? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, I have already said that I don't know. However, Boss Liu and the others are all bandits. It shouldn't be too difficult for them to track a person's identity, right? Liu Hushan shook his head and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you know that I've been in disguise along the way and then carefully hurried along the way? I believe that even if the bandit leader, Boss Liu, is capable, it's impossible for him to find me if he doesn't know my route of action. Yuan Weiqing, what do you think? Are you speechless? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned. Then his forehead gradually exuded cold sweat. It seemed that there was really no way to explain LV Hushan's question. LV Hushan's route to the East County was indeed only known by the four of them. However, Hall Master Shui and Deputy Hall Master Zhang would never tell anyone about this matter, and they would not do it themselves. Since the two Hall Masters would not do this, Yuan Weiqing was the most suspicious one, because, as LV Hushan said, it was impossible for him to chase after himself. Seeing Yuan Weiqing lowering his head and not speaking, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, this time you have nothing to say. Even if you want to quibble, do you think I will believe you? I advise you to admit it. I really won't do anything to you. I just want to know the truth. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, it's not that I don't want to admit it. I didn't do this. How can I admit it? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, think about it. We have been friends for so many years. How can I harm you? Don't you think so? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan suddenly laughed. Yuan Weiqing, we have been friends for so many years. You won't harm me. You must be joking. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he sneered and continued. Yuan Weiqing, when you were chasing me, did you think about our relationship for so many years? When you attacked me, did you think that my martial arts were not as good as yours? Maybe I would really be killed by you. Yuan Weiqing, don't say those words. If you really valued our relationship, you wouldn't have chased me all the way. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, you really misunderstood me. How could I do such a thing? There must be a reason, don't you think? Reason? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered and turned to look at Yuan Weiqing. He gritted his teeth and asked, Yuan Weiqing, then tell me, what is the reason? Yuan Weiqing calmed down and said slowly, LV Hushan, if I didn't guess wrong, you're out. Chapter 851. Yuan Weiqing said slowly, LV Hushan, your route must have been known by others, so the people chasing you could find you accurately. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan immediately sneered and nodded. Yuan Weiqing, you're right. The person who knew my route should be you. Now, the evidence is conclusive. What else do you have to say? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, I've already said that I didn't do this. Don't misunderstand. LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, you said that you didn't do it. Then tell me, if you didn't do it, then it was Vice Hall Master Zhang and Hall Master Shui? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Of course it's impossible. How could Hall Master Shui and Vice Hall Master Zhang do such a thing? Hearing this, LV Hushan gritted his teeth and asked with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, don't tell me that there's a fifth person who knows about this matter? Yuan Weiqing nodded and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, I'm not worried about the fifth person, but that there are already 7 or 8 people who know about it. Do you understand? What? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was shocked. Yuan Weiqing, what are you talking about? How could there be so many people who know about it? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, if it was someone else, maybe no one else would know about the route of this operation except for these 4 people. But it's really hard to say for you. Do you understand what I mean? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned and then said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, do you want to say that I would tell such an important thing to others? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, that's right. On the surface, only the 4 of us know about this in the secret Thunder sect in the South County. However, we don't know how many people you will tell about this. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Lu Hushan took a few deep breaths before saying with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, do you think I'm stupid? Why would I tell such an important thing to others? I think you're just talking nonsense. Don't quibble anymore. You did this, so it's useless to push the blame onto others. Yuan Weiqing, do you understand? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a bitter smile, LV Hushan, I don't have to lie to you because it's all true. LV Hushan nodded as he asked with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, since you said that I leaked it out myself, then tell me, how did I leak it out? Why did I leak it out? Explain it to me clearly. Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, you're too willing to drink, so I'm sure that when you said these words, you probably didn't even notice it because you were already drunk at that time. How would I know what you said? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment. Then he sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, I know that I'm willing to drink, but even if I drink, do you think I will tell such an important thing? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, even if I drink too much, I know that this matter is very important to me, so I will never say it. Do you understand? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, since you don't believe me, let me ask you. After this matter was decided, did you leave the next day? LV Hushan nodded. Of course, this matter was originally very urgent, so the departure was relatively rushed. After we decided in the afternoon, I left early the next morning. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing nodded and said slowly, after you set off, I'm sure that when you were attacked by the enemy, it would be the second day of your journey, right? LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, what else do you need to guess? You did this. I'm afraid you know it better than anyone, right? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I have already said that I really didn't do this. If I did, why would I be here to analyze this matter with you? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, the reason why you analyze these things with me is that you want to quibble for yourself, right? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, since you don't believe me, then it's useless for me to say more. I think we should speak with facts. When the time comes, you will naturally believe me. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued. LV Hushan, I just said that when you encountered the enemy's attack, it must be the second day of your journey. Why is that? Because the enemy's preparation was too hasty, so he couldn't take action that day. He could only wait until the next day. LV Hushan turned his head and stared at Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing, you can say whatever you want. Anyway, you did it. You know it better than anyone else. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he sneered and continued. But it's okay to listen to you. I also want to know the process of your actions. Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, not only do I know that you encountered the enemy's attack on the second day of your journey, but I also know that on the night of your departure, you must have been drinking with your so-called friends, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. After hesitating for a short while, he waved his hand. No, Yuan Weiqing, you're wrong this time. I'm really not drinking with my friends. You have nothing to say, right? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was also stunned. Then he sneered and said, LV Hushan, now that things have come to this, don't lie to me. You drink every day. I don't believe that you didn't drink that day. LV Hushan, it's better if you tell me. This is very important. I'm sure that the people who have been chasing you are the ones who were drinking with you. If you don't tell me, I'm afraid you won't know for the rest of your life. And this person claims to be your friend, but he is cruel to you. How can you trust such a friend? Maybe if you tell me the truth, we can still find this person. Don't you think so? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. After a while, he said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, you are right. I drink every day. That day was no exception. I did drink with my friends, but I can guarantee that the friends who drank with me that day would never do such a thing to me. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, in fact, I know even if you don't say it. You drink every day. It is impossible that you didn't drink on that day. LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, although I also drank with my friends that day, the friends that day definitely have nothing to do with this matter. So this matter is naturally not done by them. Do you understand? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head and asked with a sneer, LV Hushan, do you believe your own words? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued. LV Hushan, I'm sure that the people who drank with you that day must be old 8, right? What? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was shocked. Yuan Weiqing, how do you know that old 8 was there? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, it seems that I didn't guess wrong. When you drank that day, Old 8 was there. It seems that my guess is right. LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing. Do you mean that the person who did this is Old 8? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, you are right. Although I'm not 100% sure, I am at least 70% or 80% sure that this matter must be done by Old 8. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. Suddenly, he sneered and stared at Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing, what nonsense are you talking about? Why would Old 8 attack me? Besides, I didn't tell him about this matter. How could he know my route? Yuan Weiqing, I advise you not to talk nonsense. There are some things that you can't quibble about. Do you understand? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head and sighed. LV Hushan, you really don't know why Old 8 wants to deal with you? LV Hushan saw that Yuan Weiqing's expression didn't seem to be fake. He had some doubts in his heart. He frowned and asked, Yuan Weiqing, what do you mean? Why don't I understand? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, in fact, I didn't know about this matter before. I just heard about it recently. However, there are some details that I'm not sure about, so I didn't tell you. Seeing Yuan Weiqing's serious expression, LV Hushan was also a little nervous. He hurriedly asked, Yuan Weiqing, tell me quickly. What happened? Why did Old 8 want to harm me? Tell me quickly. Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, do you still remember when you went to the Black Mountain? LV Hushan was stunned at first. Then he sneered and nodded. Yuan Weiqing, how can I forget such an important matter? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's eyes stared at Yuan Weiqing. He gritted his teeth and said, Yuan Weiqing, I will never forget that this is one of the things that you did to me. If it wasn't for my good luck, maybe I would have been killed by the beasts on the Black Mountain. That's what you wanted, right? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned and sighed. He said slowly, LV Hushan, that time you went to the Black Mountain was really dangerous. If you were alone, you would have definitely been killed by the beasts on the Black Mountain. LV Hushan snorted. Yuan Weiqing, that was my good luck. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said slowly, LV Hushan, that was not your good luck. Don't you understand? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, what do you mean? At that critical time, someone came to help me. Isn't that my good luck? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, let me ask you. Your martial arts are not as good as the beasts on the Black Mountain. If you go to the Black Mountain again and see the beasts on the Black Mountain attacking a stranger, will you go to help? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan froze for a moment. Then he sneered and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, aren't you talking nonsense? My martial arts are not as good as the beasts on the Black Mountain. If I go to help, what if I get killed? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing nodded and sneered. LV Hushan, if you answer like this, it means that if you see a stranger being attacked by the beasts on the Black Mountain, you will never go to help, right? LV Hushan nodded. That's right. I won't go to help. Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, I can understand if you think like this because I think so too. I believe that most people will think so too. Don't you think so? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, since most people will think like this, then why did the person who saw you being attacked by the beasts on the Black Mountain that day come forward to help you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan froze for a moment, then he sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I think that person is young. I guess he must be a young man who doesn't know anything. He doesn't know how powerful the beasts on the Black Mountain are, and he is very confident in his martial arts, so he went forward to help. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you are wrong. Even if it is a young man who doesn't know anything, as long as he is not stupid, when he sees a stranger in danger, and it is the kind of danger that he can't solve himself, I'm sure that he will never go forward to help. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned tightly. He turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked tentatively, Yuan Weiqing, then why do you think he went forward to help? Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan, sighed, and slowly said, LV Hushan, there's only one reason why he came forward to help. It is because he knows you, so he came forward to help. Knows me? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. Then he waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, are you lying to me? Chapter 852. LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think I'll believe your words? Let me tell you, this is impossible. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, if I know this person, why have I never seen this person before? Until now, you still dare to lie to me. Do you really think I don't dare to do anything to you? Seeing LV Hushan's ferocious look, Yuan Weiqing was shocked and took a step back. He hurriedly waved his hand and said with a bitter smile, LV Hushan, you really misunderstood me. I'm not talking nonsense. You really know the person on the Black Mountain. I'm not lying to you. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, think about it carefully. If he doesn't know you, he is not stupid. Why would he be willing to help you in such a dangerous situation? Believe me, you definitely know this person. There is no mistake about this. Hearing this, LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, since you said that I know him, why haven't I seen him? Why don't I know him? Are you sure I don't know the person I know? Yuan Weiqing waved his hand, sighed, and said slowly, LV Hushan, maybe I am wrong. It should be that this person knows you, and he also thought that you would know him. So, when he saw that you were in danger, he immediately stepped forward to help. LV Hushan looked at Yuan Weiqing and asked with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, what you said is true. Don't tell me that you know who this person is that I don't know. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing nodded and sighed. LV Hushan, although I have never seen this person, I know who this person is. Do you believe me? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was suddenly shocked. Yuan Weiqing, what did you say? You know this person? Why don't I know? Speaking of this, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment and urged again, Yuan Weiqing, tell me quickly, who is this person? Yuan Weiqing turned to look at LV Hushan and asked slowly, LV Hushan, do you still remember what I just said to you? What? LV Hushan looked at Yuan Weiqing with some doubts. Yuan Weiqing, what did you just say? Why don't I remember it has something to do with this matter? Yuan Weiqing shook his head with a wry smile. LV Hushan, we were talking about drinking. Drinking? LV Hushan was even more confused. Yuan Weiqing, what's wrong with drinking? Does it have anything to do with this? Yuan Weiqing nodded and said slowly, LV Hushan, of course it has something to do with him. Otherwise, why would I talk about this matter? Hushan, LV Hushan, Hushan, speak, what do you have to? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing let out a sigh and said slowly, LV Hushan, it's because the one who saved you on Black Mountain was Old 8's elder brother, Old 6. Do you understand now? What? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was suddenly shocked and asked in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, what did you say? Is what you said true? Is that person really Old 8's brother, Old 6? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, what I said is true. I don't need to lie to you. I have heard these things from others, so I know about this matter. Hearing this, LV Hushan's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Are you saying that when I went to the East County to do a mission, the person who chased me on the road was Old 8? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, what you said is possible. Although Old 8's martial arts are similar to yours, I believe that his brother's martial arts must be higher than yours. Don't you think so? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan suddenly reacted. He wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing, and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you're scaring me. You want me to believe all this just to defend yourself. Do you think I will believe you? After hearing L.V. Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head. L.V. Hushan, why don't you believe it? Think about it carefully. If old 8's brother, old 6, didn't know you, how could he save you? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for L.V. Hushan to answer his words, he continued. L.V. Hushan, as we've said just now, in such a situation, if they didn't know each other, no one would come forward to help. Because, just like you, if they went to help but you ran away, wouldn't that person be in trouble? It is precisely because of this reason that no one will go forward to help when they know that they are no match for the monsters on High Mountain. It is precisely because old 6 has seen you at old 8's place, and because you and his brother are both in the secret Thunder sect in the South County, that he is willing to go forward to help. Moreover, he thinks that you should also know him, so he is not worried that you will run away. Do you understand? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, L.V. Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, I have already said that I didn't deliberately go out of tune. If it wasn't for the secret Thunder sect in the South County and those ors, how could I run away? Speaking of which, it's all old 6 bad luck. How can you blame me for this? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. L.V. Hushan, you don't think this is your fault, right? L.V. Hushan nodded. Of course. Why should you blame me? I'm also doing this for the secret Thunder sect in the South County. If old 6 wants to blame someone, he can only blame the secret Thunder sect in the South County. If it wasn't for the mission of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, how could I run away? Hearing L.V. Hushan's nonsense, Yuan Weiqing waved his hand and said with a sneer, L.V. Hushan, I don't want to listen to your words. I just want to tell you that when you and old 8 were drinking that night, you might have accidentally said it, or old 8 deliberately found out. In short, old 8 knows this news. In this way, there are 5 people who know this news. Don't you think so? 5. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, L.V. Hushan gritted his teeth and lowered his head to think carefully. Suddenly, he raised his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I don't believe what you said. You said that old 8's elder brother is old 6. This is all a lie. If this is true, why only you know it and I don't? After hearing L.V. Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, L.V. Hushan, you don't know the reason because no one told you. In addition, you never ask about these things, so naturally, you don't know. Although you don't know about it, I can tell you that it's true. If you don't believe me, you can ask 8th brother or someone else when you go back. In short, I'm not the only one who knows about this. I think you'll believe me in the end. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, L.V. Hushan nodded and muttered to himself, I was wondering why that person would come to save me. If it were me, I would never go. Speaking of this, L.V. Hushan's eyes suddenly lit up. He turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you are too cunning. I almost believed you. If I wasn't smart, I would have been fooled by you. L.V. Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question. Instead, he sighed and continued to speak on his own. Yuan Weiqing, in fact, why do you have to do this? I have already said that I just want to know the truth. Even if you admit it, I won't do anything to you. Why do you have to play these tricks? After hearing L.V. Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. L.V. Hushan, how can you say this? As long as you go back and inquire about this matter, you will naturally know. Even if I want to lie to you, can I lie to you? L.V. Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, this is your lie. I will never believe it, because in your lie, there's the most obvious flaw, but you didn't find it. Unfortunately, this obvious flaw was found by me, so it can completely prove that what you said is all a lie. None of it is true. Yuan Weiqing, don't play any more tricks. I tell you, if you admit it obediently, I will treat it as if it didn't happen. But if you still refuse to admit it, then don't blame me for being rude, understand? After hearing L.V. Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. Then he lowered his head and thought carefully in his heart. He wanted to know where the flaw that L.V. Hushan mentioned was. After thinking for a while, Yuan Weiqing frowned even more. He actually couldn't figure out where the flaw that L.V. Hushan mentioned was. Yuan Weiqing looked up at LV Hushan and asked tentatively, LV Hushan, is there really any flaw in this matter? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, of course there is. If I didn't think of it occasionally, I would really be fooled by you. I advise you to admit it quickly. If I do something to you, it will be too late for you to regret it. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned even more. He bowed his head and thought again, but he still didn't find anything. In desperation, Yuan Weiqing could only look up at LV Hushan and ask tentatively, LV Hushan, can you tell me where the flaw in my words is? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered and nodded. Yuan Weiqing, of course you can. Otherwise, you would think that your plan is perfect. In fact, your plan is vulnerable. As long as I think about it, I immediately think of the flaw in it. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, then tell me quickly, what is the flaw in it? I really want to know because what I said is true. How can there be a flaw? I don't believe it. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I really didn't expect that even though I found the flaw in your plan, you still refuse to admit it. Well, I will say it now. I want to see what you have to refute. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he sneered and continued. Yuan Weiqing, I remember very clearly that when that person rushed over to help, he just shouted at me. He didn't say anything. Yuan Weiqing, I want to ask you, if he knows me, why didn't he say it? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned, turned his head to look at LV Hushan, and sighed. LV Hushan, you really don't know why he didn't tell you. LV Hushan sneered. Of course it's because he doesn't know me, so he didn't say it. Otherwise, why wouldn't he say it? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed again and said slowly, LV Hushan, the reason why he didn't tell you is that he is a mute. He can't say anything except shouting. Do you understand? What? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was taken aback. Even his voice trembled a little. Yuan Weiqing, what did you say? He's a mute? Yuan Weiqing nodded and slowly said, LV Hushan, old 8's elder brother, old 6, is a mute. If you ask, I believe that many people would know. I will never lie to you about this. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's forehead gradually exuded cold sweat. He thought that he had caught the most important flaw, but he never expected that it would turn out like this. LV Hushan lowered his head and thought carefully. He suddenly realized that Yuan Weiqing's words were very reasonable and didn't seem to be lying. This was because he remembered very clearly that when that person rushed over, he shouted at him, but the expression on his face was definitely not the expression of seeing a stranger, but as if he had seen a friend. At that time, LV Hushan really didn't care about the other party's expression. He was thinking about how to complete the mission. Now that he thought about it, he suddenly realized that Yuan Weiqing seemed to be telling the truth about this matter. The reason why the person who came to save him rushed over to help him without hesitation after seeing him was because he knew him. Thinking of this, LV Hushan suddenly realized that old 8's brother, old 6, was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain. It seemed that it was all because of him. If he didn't run away at that time with their martial arts, even if they couldn't beat the monster on the Black Mountain, they might be able to escape. However, after he ran away, it was absolutely impossible for old 8's brother, old 6, to be the opponent of the monster on the Black Mountain alone. It was precisely because of this reason that old 8's brother, old 6, was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain. After understanding this point, LV Hushan's heart was suddenly taken aback. He somewhat understood. Chapter 853. LV Hushan frowned. Could this be the truth of the matter? Because of my escape, old 8's brother, old 6, was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain, so old 8 held a grudge against me? Thinking of this, LV Hushan's forehead gradually exuded cold sweat. If this is the case, then my guess is wrong. All of this has nothing to do with Yuan Weiqing. Did I misunderstand him? Yuan Weiqing saw LV Hushan lowering his head and not speaking. He sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, now you understand. Old Eight's brother, Old Six, was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain because of your escape. I believe that you may forget this matter, but Old Eight will never forget it. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued, LV Hushan, it may be because of this. So, when you were drinking, Old Eight secretly inquired about your route of action. Then, he ambushed on your route of action and prepared to avenge his brother, Old Six. LV Hushan, now you understand. This matter has nothing to do with me. It's all your fault. If you didn't run away at that time, how could this happen? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan gritted his teeth, but he didn't speak because he had nothing to say. If the person who saved me on the Black Mountain was really Old Eight's brother, Old Six, then this was very likely. Old Eight knew that his brother died because of me. Although I didn't do it, I did it and ran away, causing Old Six to be killed by the monster on the Black Mountain. This is no different from me killing him. Could it be that what Yuan Weiqing said is true, and it is not what I imagined? Thinking of this, although LV Hushan still didn't believe it, the facts were in front of him, and he had to believe it. LV Hushan was about to look up, but his heart suddenly moved. He remembered what Yuan Weiqing's cousin said and doubted it again. No, if what Yuan Weiqing said is true, then why did his cousin say that he did it? Is it really like what Yuan Weiqing said? Is it because I used a little trick so his cousin spoke nonsense? Thinking of this, LV Hushan carefully recalled Yuan Weiqing's cousin's appearance when he spoke, and he doubted it again. He remembered very clearly that when Yuan Weiqing's cousin said this, it didn't seem like he was lying. Since it didn't seem like a lie, is it true? But if what Yuan Weiqing's cousin said is true, what is going on with Old Eight's matter? Could it be that what Yuan Weiqing said was false? That his men were not Lao Ba's elder brother, Lao Lu? Was this all made up by Yuan Weiqing? Thinking of this, LV Hushan looked up at Yuan Weiqing and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you're too cunning. I almost fell into your trap again. The person I met on Black Mountain couldn't be Old Eight's brother. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? You're just talking nonsense, aren't you? Seeing that LV Hushan didn't believe his words, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, how can I lie to you about this matter? Besides, even if I want to lie to you, you just need to ask Old Eight, and this matter will be clear. LV Hushan, don't worry, I won't do such a stupid thing. How can I lie about this? If you find out, it will be bad for our friendship. What I said is true. The person you met on the Black Mountain is definitely Old Eight's brother Six. If you don't believe me, I can swear that you will believe me, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. He was puzzled again. He looked carefully at Yuan Weiqing's expression, and it didn't seem like he was lying. What's going on? Is Yuan Weiqing not lying to me? Is a person I met on the Black Mountain really Old Eight's brother Six? But is there really such a coincidence in the world? It shouldn't be. It's my first time going to the Black Mountain to do a task. Could it be that I met Old Eight's brother Six? No, there must be a reason for this. Seeing that LV Hushan lowered his head and didn't speak, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, don't find excuses for yourself. Let me tell you, the person you met on the Black Mountain is definitely Old Eight's brother Six. This is not wrong. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. He didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his words, and continued to speak. LV Hushan, think about it carefully. When you were fighting with the monster on the Black Mountain, that person should have seen it. Even if he didn't know the strength of the monster on the Black Mountain, when he saw you fighting, he should have understood. Since he already knew how powerful the monsters on the Black Mountain were, why did he still go and save you? If he didn't know you, then he should be a fool. Otherwise, why would he take the initiative to rush forward when he saw danger? So you don't have to doubt anymore. That person is really Old Eight's brother Six. This is definitely not wrong. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, even if that person is Old Eight's brother Six, so what? How can he hate me? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, you should hate you. If you didn't know that the Black Mountain was very dangerous and let me do this task alone, how could this have happened? If Old 8 wants to find someone to take revenge, shouldn't he look for you? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. He really couldn't figure out what was in LV Hushan's mind. How could this matter have anything to do with him? It was obvious that LV Hushan was timid and selfish, so he ran away first. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem to have anything to do with him. However, although Yuan Weiqing knew that this was the case, he didn't want to say it because he knew that even if he said it, it would be useless. LV Hushan had already determined that this was the case, and he would absolutely not repent. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, let's not talk about who's right and who's wrong. What we're talking about now is that Old 8's brother, Old 6, was killed by the monsters on the Black Mountain because of you. Even if you want to deny this, you can't deny it, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, although this matter has a little to do with me, I won't admit that it's all my fault. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, it doesn't matter if you admit it or not, but I think Old 8 must have thought that this matter was your fault, so he tried every means to find an opportunity. When you went to the East County, it was the best opportunity for him to make a move. He already knew your route of action, so no matter where you go, he can accurately know where you will go. Doesn't this explain the doubts in your heart? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, then let me ask you, does your cousin's words not count? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, your cousin made it very clear that the two of you were the ones behind this matter. Not only that, your cousin was very clear about everything that happened when I was attacked. If it wasn't done by the two of you, how could he know so clearly? So you don't have to quibble anymore. Yuan Weiqing, this matter must be done by you. It can't be wrong. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, I have already said that the reason why my cousin said those words was that you used a little trick on him, so he had to say it. But this is actually not done by him. He just didn't want you to use a little trick again. Don't you understand? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I admit that I used a little trick on your cousin, but then tell me, why is your cousin so clear about everything that happened when I was attacked? If he didn't do it, why would he know? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment, then waved his hand. LV Hushan, what's so strange about this? Of course, I told him. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's eyes suddenly narrowed. He gritted his teeth and asked, Yuan Weiqing, then how did you know? Yuan Weiqing waved his hand and sighed. LV Hushan, how did I know? Of course, you told me. Otherwise, how could I know? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan was stunned and scratched his head. Yuan Weiqing, why don't I remember telling you that you must be lying? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. Only then did he remember that LV Hushan didn't seem to have told him about this matter. But how could this be a problem for Yuan Weiqing? He just pondered for a moment in his heart, then said with a smile, LV Hushan, I have advised you before to drink less. Look, you don't even remember what you said before? What did you say? LV Hushan stared at Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing, you said that I told you when I was drinking? Yuan Weiqing nodded. Of course, if you didn't tell me when you were drinking, how could I know? Impossible? LV Hushan waved his hand vigorously. Yuan Weiqing, this is impossible. Why don't I remember telling you that? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, can you remember what you said when you were drunk? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, don't lie to me. I didn't say it. How can I remember it? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a smile, LV Hushan, do you know that when you drink 10 times, you will be drunk at least 8 times? In these 8 times, can you remember what you have said? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued, LV Hushan, when you're not drunk, you may not say it, because you can still control yourself. However, in the 8 times when you were drunk, I'm afraid you can't remember what you said, right? That is, in these 8 characters, you told me the whole process of this matter. You even told me how scared you were at that time. Tell me, how can I not know? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was suddenly taken aback. He asked in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, what did I say? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, you said that you were very scared at that time. If you could kneel down and beg for mercy with those 2 people. Hearing this, LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand and interrupted Yuan Weiqing's words. He sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, what nonsense are you talking about? How could I say that? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you don't have to deny it. You really said that to me, and you even cried while talking. You said that if they let you go, you would agree to any condition. Cried? LV Hushan blushed. Yuan Weiqing, don't say it. I don't believe your words. No matter how much you say, I won't believe it. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, I didn't make this up. You told me yourself. I remember it very clearly. Every time you drank to the end, you would tell me how scared and helpless you were at that time. If someone was willing to help you, you would be willing to do anything they asked of you. Shut up. LV Hushan was a little annoyed. He roared and interrupted Yuan Weiqing's words. Yuan Weiqing, these are all nonsense. I won't believe you. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, it doesn't matter whether you believe me or not. I told my cousin those words. Maybe he was afraid of your little tricks, so he repeated what I said to him, making you misunderstand that this matter was done by the 2 of us. But in fact, this matter has nothing to do with us. You found the wrong person. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned, and his brows gradually frowned. Could it be that he had really guessed wrong? What Yuan Weiqing said was very reasonable. When I was sober, I wouldn't tell this matter because LV Hushan had always suspected that Yuan Weiqing did it. How could he say it? When I was drunk, I might have said it because this kind of thing had happened more than once. Someone had told me that I said these words when I was drunk. I told them about the sneak attack I encountered in the East County. Since I have told these things to others, it seems normal to say these things to Yuan Weiqing when I was drunk. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing had some doubts in his heart. If this matter was not done by Yuan Weiqing, was it really done by 8th brother? But why did he feel that something was wrong with this matter? Chapter 854. LV Hushan felt that something was wrong with this matter, but he couldn't figure out what was wrong. Yuan Weiqing had explained everything clearly. For example, the problem with the route was because he drank too much and told others his route. Also, why did Yuan Weiqing's cousin know the details of the sneak attack? It was also because he drank too much and told Yuan Weiqing these details. Yuan Weiqing told his cousin these things, so his cousin knew these details. And most importantly, if the person he met on the Black Mountain was really Old Eight's brother, then this matter was indeed possible. Because Old Eight's brother wanted to take revenge on him. After inquiring about his detailed route, he began to set up an ambush on the path he had to pass, and then took the opportunity to sneak attack him. Thinking that Old Eight would sneak attack him, LV Hushan couldn't help but frown. Thinking of Old Eight's appearance, his heart suddenly moved. He hurriedly looked up at Yuan Weiqing and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you are too cunning. It seems that I was deceived by you again. If I wasn't careful, I would have been fooled by you again. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was taken aback, but there was no change on his face. He asked with a smile, LV Hushan, why are you still saying that? Didn't I explain it clearly enough? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued, but it doesn't matter. LV Hushan, as long as you have any questions, you can ask me together. I will answer them for you one by one. I must let you solve this misunderstanding and no longer doubt me. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan snorted coldly. Yuan Weiqing, stop dreaming. You did this. No matter how you explain, I won't believe it. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, you are a bit unreasonable. There is no evidence. Why do you keep saying that I did it? Isn't this unfair? If Yuan Weiqing's arm wasn't injured, he would have already beaten LV Hushan up. Why would he still talk nonsense with him here? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you think you are very careful, but you forgot one thing. Yuan Weiqing frowned and asked doubtfully. LV Hushan, what did I forget? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, you said that it was eighth brother who did this. Because of his brother, he hated me. When he knew my route, he immediately ambushed me on the path I had to pass, right? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing nodded. If I'm not wrong, this should be the truth of the matter. If you don't believe me, as long as you go back and ask around, you will naturally know that the person who was killed because of you on Black Mountain was old 8's brother, old 6. If this point is correct, I believe that the rest of the deductions are absolutely correct as well. Don't you think so? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned and fiercely glared at Yuan Weiqing. He suddenly sneered and slowly said, Yuan Weiqing, although what you said makes sense, you forgot one thing. Because of that, there was a flaw in your lie. It also let me know who the real person who attacked me was. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was surprised and hurriedly asked, LV Hushan, what did you find? Height. LV Hushan gritted his teeth and said, Yuan Weiqing, it's the height problem. Hearing this question, Yuan Weiqing obviously relaxed and said with a smile, LV Hushan, I thought it was a big deal. Did you forget the experiment we just did? If two people don't stand together, you can't tell who is taller and who is shorter. If you want to use this to judge a person, I'm afraid it won't work. Don't you think so? LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I believe you have seen 8th brother. If you have seen him, why did you say it won't work? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was about to speak, but suddenly his face changed and his forehead immediately exuded a cold sweat. Only then did he remember that LV Hushan was right. If he had seen 8th brother, he would understand what he meant. Yuan Weiqing's figure was medium, neither fat nor thin. He was a very ordinary person. However, 8th brother's figure was different. Although 8th brother's height was about the same as Yuan Weiqing's, he was very fat. Although he was not very fat, as long as you stood there, anyone's first impression would be that he was fat. Compared to Yuan Weiqing's figure, it was obvious that he was different. LV Hushan saw Yuan Weiqing lowering his head and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, no matter how much you quibble this time, you can't defend yourself, right? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, 8th brother is fatter than you. You should not deny this. Even if I can't tell your height, can't I tell the difference between fat and thin? I advise you to admit it quickly so that you don't annoy me and make me use some tricks on you. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked and hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, why don't you believe me? I really didn't do this. I hope you don't misunderstand. How could I do such a thing? LV Hushan sneered and nodded. Yuan Weiqing, since you don't want me to misunderstand you, then tell me, how did 8th brother do it? How could I not tell the difference between fat and thin? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's brows furrowed. He quickly thought about how to explain this problem. However, as LV Hushan said, height could not be distinguished, but fat and thin could be distinguished at a glance. How could he refute this? Gradually, Yuan Weiqing's forehead exuded cold sweat because he found that no matter how many reasons he had, there seemed to be no way to explain this matter. LV Hushan snorted coldly. Yuan Weiqing, don't tell me that when 8th brother was about to sneak attack me, he suddenly lost weight and became as fat and thin as you, and then sneak attacked me. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question. Yuan Weiqing, if eighth brother wasn't a member of the secret Thunder sect in South County, he might have done that. But don't forget that when I came back and saw him again, he was still so fat and showed no signs of losing weight. Do you want to say that after he lost weight, he became fat again? After hearing L.V. Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a forced smile, L.V. Hushan, how is this possible? How can a person become fat and thin so easily? There must be other reasons. L.V. Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, I also believe that there must be other reasons. But can you tell me? Hearing L.V. Hushan's question, Yuan Weiqing was stunned. He opened his mouth but couldn't speak. It was impossible to make someone suddenly lose weight and then suddenly become fat. No matter who it was impossible. But if eighth brother couldn't do such a thing, then he naturally couldn't let L.V. Hushan mistake him. How should he explain? Seeing that Yuan Weiqing still didn't answer his question, L.V. Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, now that the evidence is conclusive, why are you still unwilling to admit it? Do you really want me to use some tricks to make you admit it? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, L.V. Hushan, there must be a reason. Why did eighth brother suddenly lose weight and suddenly become fat? There must be a reason. Let me think about it. There must be a reason. L.V. Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I advise you not to think about it. It's useless. I won't believe you. No matter what you say, eighth brother can't suddenly lose weight and then suddenly become fat. You should obediently admit it. For the sake of friends, I won't do anything to you. After hearing L.V. Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered in his heart. You want me to admit it? Dream on. The most important thing was that although L.V. Hushan said it very nicely and wouldn't do anything to me, Yuan Weiqing was sure that if he really dared to admit it, L.V. Hushan would immediately kill me. So, I can't admit it. But, how can a person suddenly lose weight and then suddenly become fat? After thinking for a long time, Yuan Weiqing couldn't think of any way to solve this problem. He could only sigh in his heart. Unless he changed the person, otherwise, it was impossible. Change the person? Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing's eyes suddenly lit up. He hurriedly raised his head to look at L.V. Hushan and said with a smile, L.V. Hushan, I understand why eighth brother suddenly lost weight and then suddenly became fat. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, L.V. Hushan was stunned and then asked with some doubts, Yuan Weiqing, what's the reason? Tell me quickly. Yuan Weiqing nodded and said slowly, L.V. Hushan, because the person you saw wasn't eighth brother, he wasn't so fat. What? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, L.V. Hushan was suddenly shocked. Yuan Weiqing, what did you say? You said that the person wasn't eighth brother? Speaking of this, L.V. Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, then tell me, who is that person? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, L.V. Hushan, do you know why eighth brother is called eighth brother? L.V. Hushan frowned and said impatiently, Yuan Weiqing, hurry up and get down to business. I don't want to listen to that nonsense. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. L.V. Hushan, this is not nonsense. This is the real business. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for L.V. Hushan to answer his words, he continued. L.V. Hushan, the reason why eighth brother is called eighth brother is that he is ranked eighth in the family. This also means that there are 7 elder brothers or sisters above him. The person you met on the Black Mountain was his 6th brother, who was the 6th brother of the Black Mountain. Since this is the case, then we all understand. The person you mistook must be 8th brother's other elder brothers, or 8th brother's younger brother. Don't you think so? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, L.V. Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, you are talking nonsense. Are 8th brother's elder brothers necessarily very thin? Speaking of this, L.V. Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, I don't think so. Maybe 8th brother's elder brother is also fat. Then how are you going to explain it? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. L.V. Hushan, this is not necessarily true. Now think about it. You met 8th brother's elder brother, 6th brother on the Black Mountain. Is he as fat as 8th brother? Hearing this sentence, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment, then sneered. Yuan Weiqing, this matter has nothing to do with what you said. Why should I answer you? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, because you have to answer me. This is very important. If 8th brother's elder brother, 6th brother, is thin, it proves that I am right. The person who attacked you has something to do with 8th brother, because he and his elder brother cooperated to do this. You should understand now, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. His heart moved, and he suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed, because the person I met on the Black Mountain, unfortunately, he was also a fatty. This time, you have nothing to say, right? Fat. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. Then he waved his hand and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, do you think that I don't know 8th brother, so you lied to me like this? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and said, Yuan Weiqing, I didn't. Why would I lie to you? The person I met on the Black Mountain was a fat man. There is absolutely no mistake. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, do you know why I know about 8th brother? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued, LV Hushan, it is because 8th brother and I are friends, so he told me about this matter. As for his brother's fat and thin problem, do you think I don't know? LV Hushan, we are investigating the truth of the matter, but you always hide it. How can we continue to investigate? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. He knew that Yuan Weiqing was not so easy to fool, so he could only grit his teeth and said, Yuan Weiqing, yes, the person I met on the Black Mountain was not fat, but can this prove that 8th brother's brothers are all thin? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, although it can't prove that 8th brother's brothers are all thin, at least it can prove that not all of his brothers are as fat as him. There are people who have a similar figure to me. Don't you think so? Chapter 855. Yuan Weiqing turned his head and looked at LV Hushan. He sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, there are only 2 people who attacked you. As long as one of 8th brother's brothers is thin, this problem can be solved. Don't you think so? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, are you sure that 8th brother's brother did this? Yuan Weiqing nodded without hesitation. Of course. Apart from them, who else has such a big grudge against you that they would chase after you for thousands of miles? This grudge is definitely not small, except for the time when you set up old 8's elder brother, old 6, unless you have something else to hide. This matter is definitely done by old 8's elder brother. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment and had some doubts in his heart. What's going on? Is it really done by 8th brother's brother? Yuan Weiqing was right. On the Black Mountain, if he didn't run, 8th brother's brother, 6th brother would be fine. It was all because of him that 8th brother's brother, 6th brother, was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain. This grudge, not to mention 8th brother, even if it was him, he wouldn't forget it. Could it be that this matter really had nothing to do with Yuan Weiqing? The people who really chased him were actually 8th brother and his brother? Thinking of this, LV Hushan remembered what Yuan Weiqing said. Unless there was something more serious than this matter. Could it be that matter? Could it be that they are all in the human world? No, they should be no longer in the human world. How could they still come to me for revenge? Thinking of this, LV Hushan suddenly felt a chill all over his body and couldn't help but shiver. Yuan Weiqing saw LV Hushan's strange expression and couldn't help but ask, LV Hushan, what's wrong? Did you offend others and they came to you for revenge? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, what nonsense are you talking about? How could such a thing happen? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, no, you must be hiding something from me. LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. You must have done this. Even if you quibble, it's useless. I won't believe you. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, what do you want? I'm starting to wonder. Do you want to know who set you up? Or do you want to frame me? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, and without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, I have nothing to say if you want to frame me, because no matter how I explain or what evidence I take out, you won't believe me. However, if you want to find out the truth, I hope you can tell me what you're hiding. Maybe I can find something that you haven't noticed. If we can find the truth, you will naturally know who set you up, and I will get rid of this suspicion. Isn't that good? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, no matter how you quibble, I won't believe you. Because even if the person on the Black Mountain was Old Eight's brother, Old Six, I want to ask, Old Six was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain. How did Old Eight know that it was because of me that he was killed? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, under normal circumstances, even if Old Eight knew that his brother Old Six was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain, he could only know that his brother Old Six was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain. It was absolutely impossible for him to know anything else. Yuan Weiqing, no one knows what happened on the Black Mountain. Except for me and Old Eight's brother Old Six, no one saw it. In this case, how could Old Eight know about me? If you can explain this matter clearly, I can believe you. But if you can't explain it clearly, all of this is just your quibbling. It's not true. The person who really chased me is definitely you. It can't be Old Eight's brother. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. He just remembered that there was still a very important question that he hadn't thought of. Yes, LV Hushan was right. No one saw what happened on the Black Mountain except LV Hushan and Old Eight's brother Old Six. Since no one saw it, naturally no one knew what happened on the Black Mountain. Since no one knew, how did Old Eight know? What LV Hushan said was right. Even if Old Eight knew that his brother Old Six was killed by a monster on the Black Mountain, he would only know this little bit. It was absolutely impossible for him to know that his brother Old Six was killed by a monster on the Black Mountain because of LV Hushan. Since Old Eight didn't know the truth of the matter, then he really had no reason to take revenge. Old Eight's brother was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain. Naturally, he had no enemies. Why would one take revenge? Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing's forehead gradually exuded cold sweat, and his heartbeat gradually accelerated. He suddenly realized that no matter how he wanted to explain this problem, there was no way to explain it clearly. Old Six had been killed by the monster on the Black Mountain. Naturally, he couldn't say this matter. However, only Old Six and LV Hushan knew the truth. Old Six had been killed. Naturally, he couldn't say it. LV Hushan had a guilty conscience. Naturally, he wouldn't say this matter. So, how did Old Eight know that his brother was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain because of LV Hushan? Seeing Yuan Weiqing lowering his head and not saying anything, LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you have nothing to say, right? I advise you to admit it quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for using a little trick on you. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly took a step back and waved his hand vigorously. LV Hushan, how can this be? Old Six was indeed killed by the monster on the Black Mountain because of you. This is a fact no matter how you deny it. However, I only know that Old Eight knows about this matter. As for how he knows, I don't know. However, you can't think that I did this just because I don't know how Old Eight knew about this matter. LV Hushan, this is very unfair to me. Do you understand? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, What's the use of quibbling now? Old Eight can't know what happened on the Black Mountain. So he doesn't know that his brother was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain because of me. Since he doesn't know, how can he come to me for revenge? This is clearly your sophistry. Yuan Weiqing, I advise you not to delay any longer. Just admit it quickly. Don't you think so? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, How is this possible? Old Eight's brother, Old Six, was killed by the monster on the Black Mountain. How can Old Eight not find a reason? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, you have been to the Black Mountain. You should be very clear that the monster on the Black Mountain is not very fast. Moreover, as long as you put some distance between you and him, the monster on the Black Mountain will basically not chase you. I believe that Old Eight's brother, Old Six, is not a fool. Even if he went to the Black Mountain, as long as he saw the monster on the Black Mountain from a distance and immediately avoided it, there would be no danger. However, why did he rush up when he saw the monster on the Black Mountain? LV Hushan, everyone knows the reason why I raised him, right? If Old Eight's brother, Old Six, didn't see an acquaintance being attacked by the monster on the Black Mountain, how could he provoke the monster on the Black Mountain? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan gritted his teeth and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, it's useless no matter what you say. Even if Old Six did it to save an acquaintance, is I the only acquaintance of Old Six? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, I'm afraid this is impossible. How can Old Eight be sure that the person Old Six went to save must be me? So I'm telling you, you'd better not quibble anymore, because it's useless. Do you understand? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned, sighed, and said slowly, LV Hushan, when you say this, I understand why Old Eight knows that you did this. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, when you went to the Black Mountain to do a mission, many people knew about it. I think it shouldn't be strange that Old Eight knew about it, right? At the same time, Old Eight's brother, Old Six, also went to the Black Mountain. You also went to the Black Mountain. The Black Mountain is not a scenic spot, and there are powerful monsters. How could so many people go there? The people who went there probably had a mission, so they took the risk to go to the Black Mountain. You and Old Eight's brother, Old Six, went to the Black Mountain together. Then something happened to Old Eight's brother, Old Six, in the Black Mountain. Do you think Old Eight would not suspect you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, even if Old Eight suspects me, he is absolutely not sure that this matter has something to do with me. How could they dare to rashly attack me? Yuan Weiqing sighed. It seems that Old Eight has received accurate information. He knows that the reason why his brother was killed by the monsters on the Black Mountain is definitely related to you. That's why he attacked you, right? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, you are talking nonsense. Do you think Old Eight would sneak attack me from afar, just based on a guess? Yuan Weiqing, don't lie to me. Do you think I will believe you? Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, you think that Old Eight won't do it just based on a guess. But have you ever thought that your suspicion of me is actually just a guess? Didn't you also act rashly? Otherwise, why did you catch my cousin and use a little trick on him? Aren't you afraid of catching the wrong person and suspecting the wrong person? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment before he sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, this is not the same. I am suspicious of you because this matter was done by you. It is different from Old Eight's matter. I suspect you because I have enough evidence. But what about Eight's brother? He doesn't have anything. Would he suspect me? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, sometimes hatred makes people lose their minds, just like you. Just because you have a little doubt about me, you immediately attacked me. Isn't this the same logic? LV Hushan waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, I have already said that this matter was done by you. This is no longer a matter of suspicion. Although you are now quibbling and denying it, this will definitely not affect my suspicion of you. Do you understand? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing spread his hands and said with a smile, LV Hushan, you see, isn't this the case? You have doubts about me, so you believe that I did this matter. But have you ever thought that your suspicion is wrong? Also, if your suspicion is wrong, then what you did to me are you worthy of me? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. Then he reacted and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you are really good at talking. However, no matter what method you use to quibble, I will never believe you. You said that this matter was done by Old Eight, but let me tell you, no matter what means Old Eight uses, he absolutely can't know what happened on Black Mountain. Yuan Weiqing, as long as he doesn't know what happened on Black Mountain, how can he come to me for revenge? So, Yuan Weiqing, you don't have to talk nonsense anymore. This is what you did. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing waved his hand and suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, are you saying that Old Eight has no way to know about this matter? LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, to tell you the truth, I have never told Old Eight about this matter. How can he know? Moreover, even if he suspects, he can't be sure. Do you think that he will definitely come to me for revenge? Yuan Weiqing, I don't think so. If Old Eight is not sure that I did it, he will definitely come to me to investigate. Only when the investigation is clear, he can make a move on me. But he didn't do anything. I have never seen him investigate this matter. So, I am sure that Old Eight doesn't know what happened on Black Mountain. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head and sighed. LV Hushan, you are wrong. It is not that Old Eight didn't ask you to investigate, but when he investigated you, you didn't know about it. So you thought that Old Eight didn't investigate this matter. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. Without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued. Maybe Eighth Brother has already investigated this matter thoroughly without you knowing. Chapter 856. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, do you think that Eighth Brother already knows about this matter? Yuan Weiqing hesitated for a moment before nodding. LV Hushan, if you have other enemies, then it must be Eighth Brother. Since he can do such a thing, he must have known what happened. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it to you. Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you are really ridiculous. Do you think that I will tell others about this kind of thing? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Of course not. As long as you're not a fool, no one will tell others about this kind of thing that is not beneficial to them. LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, since I won't tell others, then tell me. How did Eighth Brother know about this? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, do you still need to ask? Of course, you accidentally told others when you were drunk. Drunk? LV Hushan was stunned for a moment and gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, do you think that even if I'm drunk, I will tell others about this kind of thing that is not beneficial to me? Yuan Weiqing shook his head with a wry smile. LV Hushan, when you are drunk, you still know what is beneficial to you. As long as you are happy, you will say anything. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you are lying. I definitely didn't say anything. Even if I am drunk, I can guarantee that I will not tell others about this kind of thing. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, your guarantee is useless. Have you forgotten how I know the details of what happened to you in the East County? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, when you are drunk, as long as you are asked, you will say anything in order to show that you know more than others. Believe me, I'm not lying to you. Otherwise, I wouldn't know so many things. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. He subconsciously reached out to hold his chin and frowned. Could it be that this was the reason why Eighth Brother knew about this? When he was drunk, his Eighth Brother had asked him these questions. That was how he knew what had happened on the Black Mountain. Thinking of this, LV Hushan had some regrets in his heart. Why did he have to drink? If he didn't drink, naturally, there wouldn't be these things. No, that's not right. LV Hushan thought about it again. It doesn't make sense. If Old Eight knew about this matter, no matter how well he hid it, he would be able to see through it. However, he had never seen anything strange from Old Eight. LV Hushan didn't believe that Old 8 was good at hiding because so many years had passed. No matter how good Old 8 was at hiding, there were still times when he made a mistake. However, he had never seen it before. Could it be that eighth brother had hidden it so well? No, that was absolutely impossible. Yuan Weiqing had hidden it well enough. However, LV Hushan could still see something strange about him under normal circumstances. But eighth brother could not see anything. Could it be that eighth brother hid it better than Yuan Weiqing? Thinking of this, LV Hushan couldn't help but shake his head. Impossible. Eighth brother couldn't hide it better than Yuan Weiqing. It could only be said that eighth brother really didn't know about this matter, so he couldn't see anything strange. When Yuan Weiqing saw that LV Hushan didn't answer his question, he sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, although wine is good, drinking too much is not good at all. Just like you, as long as you drink too much, you will talk nonsense. No matter what, you will dare to say it. Just like six brothers matter, I'm afraid that eighth brother just casually asked, and you immediately told him about it. That's why eighth brother knew about it. Speaking of which, you should blame yourself for being too talkative when you went to the East County. That's why eighth brother knew about it and got into big trouble. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, you have to remember that you must drink less in the future. Otherwise, you may say something that will cause more trouble. Shut up. Before Yuan Weiqing could finish his words, he was interrupted by LV Hushan. Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. I know I drank a little too much, but I can guarantee that eighth brother knows about this matter. It's definitely not, because I drank too much and told others. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, then tell me, how did eighth brother know about this matter? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan shook his head and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, eighth brother doesn't know about this matter. This is all nonsense. The person who attacked me on the road in the East County is actually an I. It can't be anyone else. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, what do you mean by this? I have already explained it very clearly. This matter was done by eighth brother. What does it have to do with me? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, eighth brother doesn't know about this matter. If he knew, I should be able to see it. But I didn't see anything, which means that he doesn't know. Yuan Weiqing, since eighth brother doesn't know about this matter, how can he take revenge on me? So, it can only be you who did this, and it can't be anyone else? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, why are you so stubborn? I have already told you. When you were drinking, you told eighth brother about this matter. Think about it. Even if it's you, after knowing about this matter, won't you find a way to take revenge? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, don't lie. Eighth brother can't know about this. Are you talking nonsense? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, do you think that eighth brother won't take revenge on you because of the deep hatred between you and him? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, if he knows, of course he will take revenge on me. But if he doesn't know, how can he take revenge on me? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you drank so much. How can eighth brother not know? LV Hushan suddenly reached out and grabbed Yuan Weiqing. He sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, don't lie to me. You're talking nonsense. Yuan Weiqing was startled by LV Hushan's action and hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I'm not talking nonsense. What I said is true. This matter has nothing to do with me. The reason why I said this is that I want to help you find out who wanted to sneak attack you. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued. LV Hushan, if you don't find this person, in the future, this person will still take revenge on you. Wouldn't that be worse? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned and slowly let go of his hand. He sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, this matter is definitely not done by eighth brother. Because eighth brother's martial arts are not as good as mine. Even if he sneak attacked me, he is definitely not my opponent. So, I dare to conclude that this matter has nothing to do with eighth brother. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, eighth brother, may not be your opponent, but don't forget that he still has his brother. Is his brother not your opponent? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued. By the way, didn't you say that you don't know the martial arts used by the person who sneak attacked you? Isn't this reasonable? You may not have seen eighth brother's brother, so naturally, you don't know the martial arts he uses. Isn't this the same as what you said just now? LV Hushan, believe me, this matter has nothing to do with me. The person who sneak attacked you is definitely eighth brother. There is no mistake. LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing. He gritted his teeth and asked, Yuan Weiqing, why did your cousin say that you did it? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sighed. LV Hushan, why did my cousin say that? Even if I explain, you may not believe it. Let me give you an example. For example, you are caught by me and I say that you harmed my cousin, but you don't admit it. Then, I use a little trick on you. The most important thing is that I ask you a question. LV Hushan, tell me, are you the one who harmed my cousin? Then you say no. Since you don't admit it, I will continue to use a little trick on you. Then, I will ask you again. LV Hushan, are you the one who froze my cousin? Speaking until here, Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan and sighed. LV Hushan, you see, after using 2 or 3 little tricks, you have to admit that you harmed my cousin. But this is not the end. Because your martial arts are not as good as my cousin, you can't harm him. So, I will continue to ask. I ask, LV Hushan, did your brother also harm my cousin? Then, after a few more little tricks, you can't take it anymore. Since you don't know who did it, you can only follow my words and say that it was your brother who did it. LV Hushan, you see, this is so simple. You said everything. The most important thing is if you don't follow my words, I will continue to use a little trick to deal with you. I believe that even if this matter is not like this, under my little tricks, you will still say what I think. Do you understand? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's face changed, and he recalled what happened at that time. After a while, LV Hushan's face became more and more ugly. He suddenly realized that when he asked, it was like what Yuan Weiqing said just now. LV Hushan still remembered very clearly that he asked the most questions. Tell me, was it Yuan Weiqing who did this? No, I don't know. Little tricks. Tell me, was it Yuan Weiqing who did this? Yes. Say, why did Yuan Weiqing do this? Is he trying to set me up so that he can make you a protector? No, I don't know either. Little tricks. Say, why did Yuan Weiqing do this? Is he trying to set me up so that he can make you a protector? Yes. Say, were the 2 of you the ones who attacked me? No. Little tricks. Thinking of the way he asked the question, LV Hushan frowned even more. Yuan Weiqing was right. That was how he asked. Could it be that Yuan Weiqing's cousin really followed his words because he had no choice but to use his little tricks? But if that was the case, didn't it mean that he had really misunderstood Yuan Weiqing? No. How could he have misunderstood Yuan Weiqing? He must have done this. Perhaps he had enemies, but after so many years, none of these enemies came to take revenge on him. Only Yuan Weiqing could do this. It must be so. If Yuan Weiqing wanted his cousin to take the position of the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County, he could only get rid of him. Therefore, this matter must have been done by Yuan Weiqing and his cousin. It could not be wrong. Thinking of this, LV Hushan suddenly raised his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, do you think I will really believe your sophistry? Hearing that LV Hushan still did not believe his words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I have already said that when you went to the East County to do the mission, I also went to do the mission. Moreover, the 2 of us did the mission at different places. How could I do it? If the person who did it was me, I would not have been able to complete my mission. But you also know that I have completed the mission on time. This also means that I did not have time to sneak attack you. Why are you still doubting me? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned and puzzled. When he went out to do the mission, He knew that Yuan Weiqing also went out to do the mission at the same time. Yuan Weiqing was right. How could he sneak an attack on him while doing the mission? Seeing that LV Hushan did not ask anymore, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly said, LV Hushan, you have to believe me. I would never do that kind of thing. Besides, even if I wanted to do it, would it delay my mission? You have to know that this is impossible. If the mission is delayed, it will definitely not be a small matter. Once someone investigates, it will be terrible. So I promise you that when you were attacked in the East County, I was doing the mission in the Black Mountain. Otherwise, my mission would definitely not have been completed. Do you understand? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued. LV Hushan, in fact, now the matter is very clear. This matter is most likely caused by you in the Black Mountain. So, Eighth Brother came to take revenge on you. I think you have wronged Eighth Brother first. Although Eighth Brother sneaked an attack on you, he did not succeed. I think we should forget about this matter. Both sides can be considered reconciled, don't you think so? Hearing these words, LV Hushan was stunned and then sneered. Chapter 857. LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, why are you so sure that old 8 did this? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he sneered and continued. Yuan Weiqing, I think it should be you who did it, right? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, why do you always misunderstand me? Didn't I already say that old 8 did this? The reason is naturally because you killed his brother. Isn't this obvious enough? Why do you still suspect me? LV Hushan shook his head, gritted his teeth, and said, Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, although old 8's brother was killed by the monsters on the Black Mountain, what does it have to do with me? If you didn't ask me to go to the Black Mountain alone to do the mission, old 8's brother wouldn't have been killed by the monsters on the Black Mountain. Speaking of which, this should all be your fault, not mine. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned and frowned. LV Hushan, don't you know the reason why you went to the Black Mountain alone to complete the mission? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, you don't get along well with your teammates. They don't want to go with you. What can I do? Can I force them to go? Hearing these words, LV Hushan suddenly turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing, gritted his teeth, and said, Yuan Weiqing, even if they don't want to come with me, can't you come with me? Yuan Weiqing pointed his finger at his nose. LV Hushan, you asked me to go with you. How is this possible? LV Hushan sneered. Why is it impossible? Since you can do the mission with others, why can't you do the mission with me? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he snorted coldly and continued. Yuan Weiqing, in fact, I know even if you don't say it. Other teammates don't want to come with me. This is probably what you want to see, and you don't want to come with me. You clearly want to see me killed by the monsters on the Black Mountain, right? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was taken aback and hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is this possible? You being killed by the monsters on the Black Mountain, what good is it good for me? To be honest, at that time, Yuan Weiqing really didn't have these thoughts. At that time, LV Hushan's words, and the relationship wasn't as bad as it was later. What Yuan Weiqing said was not a lie. Indeed, no one was willing to do the mission with LV Hushan, and he couldn't force others to do it. Most importantly, even he himself was not willing to do the mission with LV Hushan, so he let LV Hushan go alone. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, you absolutely can't blame me for this matter. Have you forgotten that I once told you that if you can't complete it, I hope you don't go. It's better to let someone else do it. However, you didn't agree. You insisted on going. What can I do? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. Let me ask you, if I said I wouldn't go, how could I continue to stay in the secret Thunder sect in the South County? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, no matter how dangerous the secret Thunder sect in the South County is, I must go. Do you understand? But you knew that the Black Mountain was very dangerous, but you didn't help me. Let me ask you, what are your intentions? Do you really think I don't know? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and looked at LV Hushan. There was an inexplicable anger in his heart. That's right, he was indeed angry at that time. Since he didn't go with LV Hushan to do the mission, Yuan Weiqing had already advised him that the monsters on the Black Mountain were very powerful, and it was impossible for him to complete the mission alone. Therefore, Yuan Weiqing advised him not to go and let someone else go. However, LV Hushan didn't listen and insisted on going. In the end, he even quarreled with Yuan Weiqing. The two of them quarreled for a long time before Yuan Weiqing finally got angry and let him go alone. However, after LV Hushan left, Yuan Weiqing really regretted it because he knew that the monsters on the Black Mountain were very powerful. Not to mention LV Hushan, even he was definitely not a match for the monsters on the Black Mountain. During the period when LV Hushan left, Yuan Weiqing's heart was really tormented. If LV Hushan was killed by the monsters on the Black Mountain because of his anger, then he would really feel guilty. However, not long after, LV Hushan returned safely. There was not even a single injury on his body. It was precisely because LV Hushan returned so calmly that Yuan Weiqing was a little suspicious. How did LV Hushan complete this mission? With doubts in his heart, Yuan Weiqing began to inquire about this matter. However, LV Hushan did not say anything and did not get any information from him. Later on, since he could not get any information and LV Hushan returned safely, Yuan Weiqing gradually forgot about this matter. However, by chance, he heard about Old Eight's matter, and he immediately recalled this matter. Therefore, he went to drink with Old Eight and asked him what was going on at the wine table. Old Eight had nothing to hide about this matter. In addition, Old Eight really did not know what happened on the Black Mountain. He also wanted to find someone to discuss it with, so he told Yuan Weiqing about this matter. Hearing the news from Old Eight, Yuan Weiqing was even more suspicious. Then, he carefully asked about the time and why Old Eight's brother, Old Six, went to the Black Mountain. In the end, Yuan Weiqing combined the two sides and suddenly realized that LV Hushan and Old Eight's brother, Old Six, went to the Black Mountain on the same day, and the location was similar. LV Hushan returned safely, but Old Eight's brother, Old Six, was killed by the monsters on the Black Mountain. Most importantly, Old Eight's brother, Old Six, did not have the chance to provoke the monsters on the Black Mountain. The problem was since Old Eight's brother, Old Six, could not provoke the monsters on the Black Mountain, why was he killed by the monsters on the Black Mountain? Yuan Weiqing asked Old Eight about this matter, but Old Eight was also at a loss. He did not know why his brother would take the initiative to provoke the monsters on the Black Mountain. Although Yuan Weiqing was suspicious at the time, he did not have an accurate answer. Because at the scene, no one knew what happened, so naturally, there was no accurate answer. Therefore, Yuan Weiqing only had doubts in his heart and gradually did not continue to investigate. However, after hearing LV Hushan's words today, he immediately understood that the person LV Hushan met on the Black Mountain was Old Eight's brother, Old Six. In the past, Yuan Weiqing did not know the accurate answer because he did not know why Old Eight's brother, Old Six, would provoke the monsters on the Black Mountain. Now, he understood everything. Old Eight's brother, Old Six, came to help because he had seen LV Hushan before. Unfortunately, he only came to replace LV Hushan. He didn't expect that LV Hushan would actually run away, causing him to be killed by the monsters on the Black Mountain. It was precisely because Yuan Weiqing knew about Old Eight's matter that he used this matter to justify himself. Seeing that Yuan Weiqing lowered his head and did not speak, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, in fact, what you said is all sophistry. I will not believe it. Even if the person we met on the Black Mountain was Old Eight's brother, Old Eight would never know what happened on the Black Mountain at that time. Also, you said that I drank too much and told Eighth Brother about it. Let me tell you, that's impossible. Because when Eighth Brother and I drink, it's never just the two of us drinking together. There are at least 3 or 4 other people. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then he did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words and continued. Yuan Weiqing, there's one more thing that you may not know. When I heard about Old Eight's matter, in fact, I was also suspicious. Do you understand? So, I will never talk about this matter. In order to be safe, every time I drink with Old Eight, when I wake up the next day, I will find the people we drink with and ask them what I said last night. Yuan Weiqing, Old Eight has a grudge against me, but other people have no grudge against me. It is not strange for me to ask them these things, and they will tell me honestly. But they didn't tell me anything. Even if they did tell me something, it was nothing important. Eighth Brother couldn't have known about it when I was drunk. Do you understand? You said so much just to make me believe that it was Old Eight who did this, not you. Yuan Weiqing, do you think I will believe your words? I advise you not to quibble anymore. It's useless because Eighth Brother can't possibly know about this matter. Naturally, he won't seek revenge from me. Don't you think so? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment and gradually frowned. If LV Hushan could really do what he said, then Old Eight really had no chance to know this news. However, Yuan Weiqing did not want to see this result. Old Eight must know this news. Otherwise, how could he have a reason to make a move? If it was not Old Eight who did it, then it must be him who did it. Therefore, Old Eight must know about the matter on the Black Mountain. But the problem was that LV Hushan would not say it himself. How could Old Eight know? However, Eighth Brother had to know. How could he get this information? Seeing that Yuan Weiqing still did not answer his words, LV Hushan was a little annoyed. Yuan Weiqing, I advise you not to think of any bad ideas. Even if you defend yourself, will I believe it? I advise you to admit it quickly. While I'm in a good mood now, I will not do anything to you. But if you still don't admit it, I will not be polite to you. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was suddenly shocked. He hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, I am thinking. How did Old Eight know about this? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then he did not wait for LV Hushan to answer his words and continued to speak. LV Hushan, I have thought about it. If Old Eight wants to know about this matter, he must listen to you first. Only then he may know about this matter. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, but I didn't say it. How could he know? I advise you not to think about it. It is useless. I can assure you that I have never told Old Eight about this matter, even when I was drunk. Yuan Weiqing hurriedly shook his head. LV Hushan, you may not have said it, but don't forget. Can't others say it? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I've already said that I have never told anyone. How could they know? How could they tell Old Eight? Yuan Weiqing frowned. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he asked with a smile, LV Hushan, I understand. I understand why Old Eight knows about this matter. LV Hushan's eyes suddenly widened. Yuan Weiqing, I advise you not to play any tricks. It's impossible. I've already told Old Eight about this. He definitely won't know. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you are wrong. You may not have told Old Eight, but can you guarantee that others have not told Old Eight? Others? Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think I will tell others about this matter? What a joke. Why should I tell others? Do you think I am stupid? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a smile, LV Hushan, don't forget that you are a person who likes to drink, and there are many people who have drunk with you. If you accidentally tell them about this when you drink too much, the person who knows Old Eight will have a good relationship with Old Eight. The person who heard the news happened to have a good relationship with Old Eight. Maybe he didn't want to tell Old Eight, but he drank too much and accidentally told Old Eight the news. LV Hushan, if this is the case, Old Eight will know the truth of this matter. Don't you think so? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment. Then he waved his hand and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, what nonsense are you talking about? Do you think I will talk about this matter? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, I will tell you. I will not tell anyone about this matter, so no one will know. Do you understand? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head and sighed. LV Hushan, this matter has been going on for almost 8 years. LV Hushan, do you know how many days are 8 years and how many times you have drunk? How can you guarantee that? Chapter 858. Yuan Weiqing continued. LV Hushan, you drank so many times. Can you guarantee that you didn't mention this matter once? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment. Then he sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. I might have said it, but I can guarantee that I definitely didn't tell Eighth Brother about this matter. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he sneered and continued. Yuan Weiqing, to tell you the truth, do you think you're the only one who knows about Eighth Brother? Let me tell you, I know about it too, and I also suspect that the person I met on Black Mountain is Eighth Brother's brother, Sixth Brother. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, why would I tell Eighth Brother about this matter? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. LV Hushan, did you already know about this matter? LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, is this strange? Don't forget, I'm the protector of the Secret Thunder Sect in the South County. Is there anything wrong with knowing about this matter? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, since you already know about Eighth Brother, I'm afraid you already know that what happened on Black Mountain is definitely related to Eighth Brother, right? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, although I'm not sure, I have some suspicions. So, I can guarantee that even if I drink too much, I will never tell Eighth Brother about what happened on the Black Mountain. Do you understand? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned and suddenly said, LV Hushan, maybe you really didn't tell Eighth Brother about what happened on Black Mountain, but don't forget, you might have told someone else. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, what do you mean by this? Do you mean that someone else told Eighth Brother about this matter? Yuan Weiqing nodded and said slowly, LV Hushan, if you didn't say it, of course, someone else would. So I suspect that among the people who drank with you, someone knew about it when you were drunk, so he told Eighth Brother about it. After Eighth Brother heard about this, he decided to take revenge on you, but he didn't have the chance. He only started when you were preparing to go to the East County to do a mission. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think I will believe your words? Let me tell you, not only have I not said these words to Eighth Brother, I have not told anyone else. You did this. I advise you not to quibble, because it's useless. I won't believe you. Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is this possible? I have already said that I didn't do it. Why are you still suspecting me? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, it's not that I'm suspicious. I have thought about this matter for a long time, but after thinking about it, I finally feel that the person most likely to do it is you. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words. Yuan Weiqing, some people do hate me, but their martial arts are not as good as mine. It is impossible for them to sneak attack me and chase me so far away. Some people's martial arts are indeed better than mine, but their hatred for me is not so great. They just hate me, but they will never chase me for thousands of miles. Among all these people, you're the most likely because your martial arts are better than mine. Moreover, your hatred for me should not be small. Otherwise, you would not have attracted the bees on the Green Mountain and wanted them to kill me. So I'm sure that the person who chased me must be you. It can't be anyone else. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, I've said it before. If I'm the one who did this, tell me, how can I chase after you and complete my mission at the same time? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, don't think too much. This is impossible, so the person who chased you for thousands of miles must be someone else. It can't be me. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I have already said that the person who hates me either has lower martial arts than me, so he can't do this kind of thing, or his martial arts is better than me. But his hatred for me is not so strong. To be honest, I have thought for a long time, and in the end, I feel that you are the most likely. I can't be wrong. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, have you forgotten the bandit leader, Boss Lu? Is his hatred for you not strong enough? Or his martial arts are not as good as yours? Let me tell you, if it is him, it is absolutely possible to do this. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. I have already said that although the bandit leader Boss Lu hates me, his martial arts are not as good as mine. In addition, he doesn't know my schedule. How can he find me? So you don't have to quibble anymore. The person who did this must be you, no one else. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, do you think that I am more suspicious than the bandit leader Boss Lu? LV Hushan sneered, of course. Although the bandit leader Boss Lu hates me very much, as I said just now, he doesn't know my schedule. Even if he wants to chase me for thousands of miles, it is impossible for him to do it, right? On the contrary, you are very consistent with these 2 points. Your martial arts are better than mine. You won't deny this, right? Also, you know my schedule. You won't deny this, right? If you want to do this, wouldn't it be easier than others? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned and sighed. LV Hushan, you've always thought that I was the one who did it, so you've been thinking about my reasons. But have you ever thought that I'm not the only one with high martial arts skills? And I'm not the only one who knows about your schedule. There's so many people who have these 2 points, so why don't you go back to them? Why do you have to suspect me? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, the reason why I don't suspect them is because it is impossible for them to do this, and I suspect you because it is possible for you to do this. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, just like what I just said about the bandit leader Boss Lu. Do you think he doesn't want to do anything to you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I know that the bandit leader Boss Lu hates me, but he doesn't know my schedule. Even if he hates me, he can't do this. Schedule? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, do you think your schedule is hidden? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, no matter what, only the 4 of us know my schedule. I'm afraid it is impossible for the bandit leader Boss Lu to get this information from the 4 of us, right? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question. Yuan Weiqing, among the 4 of us, it is impossible for the 2 hall masters to do this, and it is even more impossible for me to find trouble for myself and tell the bandit leader Boss Lu about this. Since it is impossible for the 3 of us, then you're the only one left. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, what do you mean? Do you think that I will tell this matter to the bandit leader, Boss LV? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, don't joke around. When we destroyed their mountain stronghold, the 2 of us went together. The bandit leader Boss Lu hates you, and he probably hates me too, so how can I tell him about this? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan nodded and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, you are right. There is also a grudge between the 2 of you, so it is impossible for you to tell him about this. In that case, the possibility of this matter being known by outsiders is basically 0, right? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, snorted coldly, and continued. Since it is impossible for outsiders to know about this, then it can only be done by one of the four of us. The two hall masters can't do this, and I can't do it myself. Then, the only one left is you. Yuan Weiqing, what else do you have to quibble about? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, you think that only the four of us know about this matter, right? LV Hushan nodded. Of course, when this decision was made, it was the four of us. There was absolutely no fifth person present. Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly to LV Hushan, LV Hushan, the night before you set off, I remember that you drank with a lot of people, and I also remember that you seemed to have drunk a lot that night. In the end, you were carried back, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's face changed, and he sneered, Yuan Weiqing, yes, they carry me back, but so what? I know what is good for me and what is bad for me. Even if I drank too much, it is impossible for me to tell this matter, right? So you can rest assured that this matter is definitely not me, but you did it. You don't have to quibble anymore. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, think about it carefully. Who were the people who were drinking with you at that time? At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. And I also heard that you didn't treat when you drank that night, but someone else treated you to a drink, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, what are you trying to say? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, what I want to say is that all of this was premeditated. LV Hushan, after your meeting, someone treated you to a drink and a meal. Did you feel very happy? But have you ever thought that their real intention of treating you to a drink and a meal was to inquire about your schedule so that they could tell the bandit leader, Boss Liu, and use him to deal with you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's face changed, and he frowned. He began to recall in his heart, who was the one who treated that time? As these memories slowly came to his mind, LV Hushan suddenly realized that what Yuan Weiqing said seemed to be true. After the meeting that day, someone treated him to a meal and a drink. Could it really be like what Yuan Weiqing said, that the people who treated him to a meal and a drink were premeditated? They just wanted to know his schedule so that they could take revenge? Slowly, LV Hushan remembered the person who treated him to a meal and a drink that day. He was even more shocked because the person who treated him to a drink that day was Old Eight. Could it really be like what Yuan Weiqing said, that Old Eight already knew about the incident on the Black Mountain, so he wanted to inquire about his schedule to take revenge for his brother? Yuan Weiqing looked at LV Hushan, who was silent there. He sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, although this incident happened a long time ago, I believe you should be able to remember it. When we came out of the meeting, it didn't take long for someone to treat you to a meal. I believe you should remember this person now. He's Old Eight, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's face changed, and then he sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, even if Old Eight treated me to a drink, so what? Is there anything strange about him treating me to a drink? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, there is really nothing strange about it. That day, Old Eight treated you to a drink. The people who accompanied you to drink should also be Old Eight's friends, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was shocked because Yuan Weiqing was right. The people who drank that day were indeed Old Eight's friends. Yuan Weiqing didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his words and continued. LV Hushan, you should be very clear. In fact, Old Eight treated you to a drink and a meal because he wanted to know your schedule. As for the person who chased you for thousands of miles, I can't guarantee it, but in any case, this matter is definitely related to him. Chapter 859. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan gradually frowned. He began to have some doubts in his heart. Could it be that what Yuan Weiqing said was true? Otherwise, how could there be so many coincidences? I just came out of the meeting, and Old Eight came to invite me for a drink. LV Hushan remembered very clearly that his boss had never invited him for a drink before. So, why did he invite me for a drink this time? Yuan Weiqing was also right about one thing. The few people who were drinking that day were indeed Old Eight's friends. Could it be that Old Eight really had this intention, so he invited me for a drink? If Old Eight really had this purpose, then everything that Yuan Weiqing said might be true. He just wanted to inquire about my itinerary so that he could ambush me on the way. Yuan Weiqing saw that LV Hushan lowered his head and didn't speak. He sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, now you understand. The person who wants to harm you must be Old Eight. This is definitely not wrong. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned, but he didn't speak because he suddenly realized that what Yuan Weiqing said was true. Could it be that I really misunderstood Yuan Weiqing and thought that he was ambushing me, but it was actually someone else? Thinking of this, LV Hushan frowned. No, this matter couldn't be done by Old Eight. It must be Yuan Weiqing. Although Old Eight hated me, he should know about his brother's matter. The problem was, did Dad really know what happened on the Black Mountain? Impossible. Only I and Old Six knew about this matter. How could Old Eight know? Although Yuan Weiqing said that he said it when he was drunk, LV Hushan couldn't remember saying such a thing. LV Hushan also heard about Old Eight's matter from others. He could naturally associate it with what happened on the Black Mountain. How could he tell others? Since he wouldn't say it, LV Hushan was sure that there wouldn't be a third person who knew. Therefore, Yuan Weiqing must be lying about this matter. In fact, he was just quibbling. Thinking of this, LV Hushan raised his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sneered, Yuan Weiqing, do you think that I will believe you? LV Hushan paused for a moment before he continued, without waiting for Yuan Weigo's reply. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, no one knows about this, not even Old Eight. Since he doesn't know, how can he talk about the reward? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, didn't I tell you? You said it when you were drunk. Why don't you understand? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I've already told you. I didn't say it even when I was drunk. Don't lie to me. You did this. You'd better admit it. Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, do you remember what you said when you were drunk? If you can remember, then you didn't drink too much. Let me tell you, you won't remember what you said when you were drunk. Unless someone tells you the next day, you might not know what you said. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, I'm guessing that you must have mentioned it before. However, no one has told you about it, so you've always thought that you've never mentioned it. But in fact, you said it before. Maybe you said it more than once. Think about it. How could Eighth Brother not know? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, don't tell me that no one will tell me. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, every time Old Eight drinks with you, he brings his friends. Don't you understand his intentions? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, it's because his friends won't tell you these things, so Old Eight will bring his friends every time he drinks. Do you understand? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, are you sure that Old Eight did this? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. Then he shook his head. LV Hushan, I'm not sure because I don't know whether it was Old Eight or the bandit leader boss Lu who did this. But I think when you went to the East County, you were attacked. These two people definitely couldn't have escaped. Otherwise, why would they do this if they didn't have such a great hatred? Hearing this, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, why not? And you, don't you also want to do this? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, this is impossible. I just said that when you went to do the task, I also went to the Green Mountain to do the task. How could I split myself to attack you? So don't doubt me. I definitely didn't do this. Why don't you understand? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, you said that Old Eight or the bandit leader boss Lu did this, But have you ever thought that these two people's martial arts are not as good as mine? Also, I don't know my itinerary. How could they do this? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question. Yuan Weiqing, maybe it's just as you said. Eight's brother might have probed me when I was drunk, but how did the bandit leader, Boss Liu, know about this? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, have you ever thought that the two of them did it together? Together. Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly sneered, Yuan Weiqing, don't lie to me. The two of them don't know each other. How could they work together? I can believe it if you say that you work together. Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is this possible? The bandit leader boss, Liu, has a grudge against me. How could he work with me? An old 8. He is your subordinate. How could he work with an outsider like me? LV Hushan, you'd better not have such thoughts. This matter was not done by me. No matter what you say, you should be clear that even if there's a bit of estrangement between us, it is not enough for me to sneak attack you, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan suddenly sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, you are wrong. It is not a small gap between us. It is that you want to harm me and let your cousin become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, right? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, I just want my cousin to become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, and I attack you. Isn't this a little too ridiculous? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, others may find it ridiculous, but I don't find it funny at all to you. I only find it terrifying. Because, can you really do such a thing? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he sneered and continued to speak. No, I was wrong. It is not that you can do such a thing, but you have already done such a thing. Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I have already explained the matter so clearly. Why are you still doubting me? LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, it is not that I am doubting you, but you did this. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, have you forgotten what happened on Green Mountain? You gave me that pill. Didn't you want those bees to kill me, so that your cousin can become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County? Am I wrong? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I've already said that what happened on the Green Mountain was purely a misunderstanding. I had good intentions, but ended up doing the wrong thing. I thought that pill was a good medicine for treating injuries, but who would have thought that it would attract bees? If I had known this, I would never have given you the pill. LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, if you were a fool, I might have believed your words. But you're not. You are very smart. You know that the medicine can attract the bees, and those bees will kill me. How can a person who can devise such a plan be a fool? Yuan Weiqing, don't you think so? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, I've already said that I really didn't know that the pill would attract bees. How do you want me to explain it to you so that you will believe me? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I will not believe you no matter how you explain it, because this is your intention. You want to use those bees to kill me. Even if you want to explain it, you can't change this fact. Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. LV Hushan, let's not talk about the bees on Green Mountain first. Let me ask you, why did you give me the feces of the wild bear? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's expression froze. He then waved his hand, sighed, and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, I have already explained this matter to you, and I also admit that I did let you eat the feces of the wild bear. However, I have already apologized to you. What else do you want? Apologize? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, do you think an apology is useful? If I didn't discover it early, by now, I'm afraid we would have drunk the wine 50 times. Then, wouldn't I be a useless person now? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, this matter was indeed done by me, and I have already apologized to you. No matter what, this matter has not reached the worst point. But you clearly did it, but you don't dare to admit it. What is this about? I'm afraid it's not as good as me admitting it. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly became angry. LV Hushan, do you know that I have diligently practiced martial arts for 30 years and was almost ruined by you drinking 50 times? Do you think I can forgive you with just an apology? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, if you don't want to forgive me, that's your own business. What else do you want me to do? Besides, you drank the feces of the wild bear. Did you think I didn't? At this point, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, to tell you the truth, if you didn't make a move on me first and wanted the bees on the Green Mountain to kill me, I wouldn't have let you eat the feces of the wild bear. Speaking of which, this is all your fault. If you didn't make a move on me, I wouldn't have made a move on you. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly became angry. He gritted his teeth and said, LV Hushan, you said that I made a move on you, and you blame me. Let me ask you, every day you spread rumors about me behind my back. How are you going to explain this? LV Hushan was suddenly stunned when he heard this, and then he smiled and waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, it's only a few words. Why take it seriously? Besides, could it be that you can't even take a joke? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, you're no longer joking. The people of the Secret Thunder sect in the South region know about the rumors you made, and you still say that it's a joke. If I also made such a joke to you, would you be very happy? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, to tell you the truth, I did say those words, but what I said was what you did. How is this a rumor? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed. You told others that since the first day you came to the Secret Thunder sect in the South region, I've been bullying you and even wanted to harm you. LV Hushan, let me ask you, is this true? Have I ever harmed you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, do you have any? Look at the missions you've arranged for me. What kind of people are they? I'm afraid they are the most dangerous missions. Also, you even asked me to go on those trivial tasks. What are you thinking? Do you think I don't know? Yuan Weiqing. If it weren't for my good temper, I would have settled accounts with you long ago. Why would I wait until now? Isn't this bullying me? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, since the first day you came to the Secret Thunder sect in the South region, I have always wanted to treat you well, so I arranged for you to be in the logistics department. However, not only are you not grateful to me, but you even hate me. You hate me for letting you do the logistics work, and you have offended all your colleagues. What can I do? Chapter 860. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, is this how you treat me? Don't talk nonsense. You arranged for me to work in the logistics department. Are you trying to trick me? Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, if you didn't arrange for me to work in the logistics department, how could I have offended all my colleagues? In the end, this is all because of your bad intentions. If it wasn't for you, how could this happen? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, you offended all your colleagues. Are you blaming me for this? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, if you didn't arrange for me to work in the logistics department, how could this happen? Tell me, how can I not blame you? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, tell me, is it wrong for me to arrange for you to work in the logistics department? LV Hushan sneered. Of course it's wrong. If you didn't trick me, how could you arrange for me to work in the logistics department? Yuan Weiqing sighed in his heart and said slowly, LV Hushan, well, even if you're right, it's wrong for me to arrange for you to work in the logistics department. However, this can't be considered as tricking you, right? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, You have to know that there were many people who wanted to do this work at that time. Almost everyone in the team wanted to do this work. However, I saw that you had just arrived, and I was afraid that you were not familiar with the terrain, so I let you do this work. Tell me honestly, is this tricking you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan clenched his teeth and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, if you said these words to me before, I might have believed you. But now it's impossible. What you did was clearly against me. From the beginning, when I came to the secret thunder sect in the south region, you began to target me and make things difficult for me. Do you think I don't know? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and asked with a bitter smile, LV Hushan, I don't agree with you. After you came to the squad, you did work in the logistics department for a period of time, but it was only for a month or two. After these 2 months, you'll start doing quests. We won't be able to see each other much. Tell me, how am I going to set you up? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you're right. We don't see each other often because you keep making me do missions. How can we meet each other? LV Hushan paused for a moment before he continued, without waiting for Yuan Weigo's reply. Yuan Weiqing, everyone in the team is very free, but I'm the only one who's very busy. Don't tell me that you're not targeting me? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. Then he sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, let me tell you, I'm also a human. I'm kind to you, but not only do you not appreciate it, you even hate me. How can I not be angry? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer him. Yes, you're right. At the beginning, I did want to give you more quests to ease the anger in my heart. But after a long time, my anger naturally dissipated. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly turned his head to look at LV Hushan, gritted his teeth, and said, But from then on, you began to speak ill of me. The problem is that you told everyone, whether it's the people in the secret thunder sect in the south region or outsiders, that I'm not good to you and that I want to set you up? LV Hushan, I don't understand. I just asked you to do a few more quests. Is it that I'm setting you up? Do you know how many people laughed at me after you stopped doing quests? They said that I'm good to you, but you're not grateful to me. Some people even said that I'm blind. Do you know how hard it is for me? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, these are your own words. Let me tell you, I will never believe it. As for the fact that I don't do logistics work, someone is laughing at you. Let me say it. I'm afraid that you're the one laughing at yourself. You didn't succeed in your plot against me. Are you laughing at yourself for being too weak and regretting it secretly? Yuan Weiqing shook his head, sighed, and said slowly, LV Hushan, do you know how much damage you've done to me by saying those bad things about me? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he snorted coldly and continued. LV Hushan, before you came to the secret thunder sect in the south region, when everyone saw me, they would greet me and talk to each other. However, after you badmouth me, everyone looks at me differently. In their eyes, I'm afraid I've already become the bad guy you spoke of. LV Hushan, think about it. Who dares to approach a bad guy like me? Even these people who don't know me have started to speak ill of me. Do you know how I feel? You only feel that you're happy to say it. But have you ever thought about how uncomfortable it is for the people you're talking about? LV Hushan, to be honest, from that time on, I wanted to teach you a lesson. However, when I saw your appearance, I couldn't bear to do it. I can tell you clearly that with your martial arts, if I use my full strength, I'm afraid you won't even be able to take 20 moves and will be defeated by me. The gap between our strength is so big, but you still keep speaking ill of me. I really don't know what you're thinking. Aren't you afraid that I'll be angered by you and really do something to you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, how about it? You're finally willing to tell the truth. You wanted to do something to me for a long time, but you didn't have the chance. It wasn't easy to wait for the opportunity on the mountain, but my luck was too good and you didn't succeed. So, you ambushed me on the way to the East County, ready to kill me completely. Yuan Weiqing, you didn't expect that my luck was so good. Even if I fell from the cliff, I was fine. Although I was a little injured, I came back after recuperating for a while. Seeing me come back, Yuan Weiqing, are you disappointed? Why didn't I die? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. He knew that he had said too much, so he quickly waved his hand. LV Hushan, although I hate you for speaking ill of me behind my back, I'm just angry. I definitely didn't do anything. Please believe me on this. As for the sneak attack you said, it has nothing to do with me. Do you understand? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, this is impossible. All of this is definitely done by you. I'm sure that my guess is definitely not wrong. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, I've already said that this matter is likely to be done by Eighth Brother and the bandit leader boss LV. Why don't you believe me? Hearing this, LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, since you said that it was done by the two of them, then let me ask you, how do they know my route of action? Don't tell me that I said it when I was drunk. Let me tell you, even if you say so, I will never believe it. I advise you to save your energy and don't talk nonsense like this. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned. He secretly muttered in his heart, if I don't say this, then what should I say? The best way is, of course, to say that LV Hushan said his route of action when he was drunk. However, now it seems that he doesn't believe these words. What should I do? Yuan Weiqing frowned slightly. He kept thinking in his heart, under what kind of situation would LV Hushan say this? However, after thinking for a long time, Yuan Weiqing suddenly realized that it seemed impossible for LV Hushan to say this matter except when he was drunk. This was because even LV Hushan himself knew that this matter was very important to him. If outsiders knew about it, it would definitely not be good for him, so he would never say it himself. Then, how would Old Eight and the bandit leader, Boss LV, know about this matter? Seeing Yuan Weiqing lowering his head and thinking hard, LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I advise you not to waste your energy. It's useless, because no matter what the situation is, I can't tell these things to others. Since I don't say it, how can others get any information from me? Only the four of us know about this matter. If I don't say it, Vice Hall Master Zhang doesn't say it, and Hall Master Shui doesn't say it, then there's only you. Yuan Weiqing, among the four of us, you know my route of action, and your martial arts are higher than mine. You have a reason to attack me. Tell me, why don't I suspect you? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, you're right. In our Nanjun Tamlay sect, only the four of us know about this news. You won't say it, and I won't say it, so there are only two people left. One of them is Hall Master Shui, and the other is Vice Hall Master Zhang. Who do you think will tell this matter to others? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, neither of them will tell others about this matter. Only you can tell others. I advise you to admit it quickly. No matter how you quibble, I won't believe it. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, I didn't do this. Why should I admit it? What's more, it's obvious that I didn't do it. Why do you always suspect me? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, it's not that I suspect you. It's because you did it. You just don't want to admit it. Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan. He sighed and asked slowly, LV Hushan, does Eighth Brother have a grudge against you? LV Hushan was stunned and then sneered. Eighth Brother has a grudge against me, but he doesn't know, so he won't take revenge on me. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, don't you have a grudge against Boss Liu? LV Hushan nodded. Boss Liu does have a grudge against me, but he doesn't know my route of action. Even if he wants to take revenge on me, he can't do anything about it. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, both of them have a grudge against you. You don't suspect them, but you always suspect me. I really don't understand. What are you thinking? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and said, Yuan Weiqing, I've said it before. Even if they have a grudge against me, they don't know my route of action. Based on this point alone, I'm sure that it wasn't them who attacked me this time. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, let me ask you, if you have a grudge against others, will you try to find out about them? I think that no matter what it is, as long as someone is willing to inquire about it, they will definitely be able to find out. Just like when you went to the East County to do this mission. Although only the 4 of us in the Secret Thunder sect in the South County know about it, have you forgotten that the people you're doing the mission with might also know about it? If the head of the bandits, Boss Liu, happened to know about this and launched a sneak attack on you, do you think it's strange? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned and frowned. Yuan Weiqing, do you mean that the other party told me about my route of action? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, if there's no problem on our side, then there must be a problem on the other side. Maybe Boss Liu really got the news from there. Boss Liu has a deep grudge against you. How could he let go of this opportunity when he heard the news? That's why I've always thought that this matter was definitely done by Boss Liu or Old 8. It can't be wrong. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, even if you quibble, it's useless because what you said is impossible. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. Yuan Weiqing, the other party only knows that I'm going to the East County, but they don't know the specific route I'm taking. You said that Boss Liu got the news from the other party. Since the other party doesn't know, how can Boss Liu get accurate information? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, are you still unwilling to admit it this time? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned. His heart suddenly moved, and he hurriedly said, LV Hushan, I finally understand. You're right. Even the other party doesn't know you're out of action. Chapter 861. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. He frowned and asked, Yuan Weiqing, what do you mean? What do you understand? Why don't I understand? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, think about it carefully. How many people in the Secret Thunder sect in the South County know that you went to the East County this time? LV Hushan frowned. Of course, only the 4 of us know about it. Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, I'm asking you, among the 4 of us, who knows your specific route? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, if I remember correctly, the route was arranged by you. The 3 of us only know that you went to the East County, but we didn't know which route you were going to take. Of course, the reason why we didn't study your route was that we felt that it was unnecessary, so we let you make your own decision. In this way, the only person who knows your route is actually you. LV Hushan, am I right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was taken aback. He gradually frowned and carefully recalled the situation at that time. After a while, LV Hushan finally realized that Yuan Weiqing was right. He did not arrange any route when he went to the East County. As for how he went, it was his own choice. Thinking of this, LV Hushan frowned even more. If this was the case, then didn't it mean that no one knew his route? Yuan Weiqing saw that LV Hushan was silent, so he sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, do you understand now? No one knows your route. Only you know it. In this case, if I want to sneak attack you, but I don't know your route, how can I sneak attack you? Hearing this, LV Hushan frowned and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't expect that you could even find out about the route that only I know. You're really amazing. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he snorted and continued. Yuan Weiqing, I really can't figure out how you did it. I think you should tell me yourself and let me know what the problem is. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, I've already said that this matter has nothing to do with me. Why do you always think I did it? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and said, Yuan Weiqing, because you hate me the most, and you even attacked me. How can I not suspect you? Yuan Weiqing sighed and asked slowly, LV Hushan, if that's the case, then tell me, how did I know your route? Me? LV Hushan was stunned for a moment. Then he sneered, Yuan Weiqing, how would I know? Why don't you tell me? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a wry smile, I don't know. Why don't you tell me? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, a cold light suddenly flashed in LV Hushan's eyes. He took a step forward and grabbed Yuan Weiqing, shouting in a low voice, Yuan Weiqing, I advise you to be honest and quickly tell me your secret. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Yuan Weiqing tried to take a step back. LV Hushan, how do I know? This is your secret. How do I know who you will tell it to? LV Hushan stared at Yuan Weiqing fiercely, gritting his teeth and saying, Yuan Weiqing, I tell you, you are the only one I have told my secret to. So, you're the one who harmed me. On the way to the East County, you were the one who sneak attacked me. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, it's useless to imagine. I just want to ask you, if you say that I sneak attacked you, but I don't know your route, then how do I know your route? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, you must have tested me when I was drunk and knew my route, right? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing laughed in his heart and shook his head. LV Hushan, didn't you just say that even if you were drunk, you would never tell this secret? So, it's impossible for me to know this when you were drunk. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. Only then did he remember that he had indeed said this. He could not help but frown. When he said this, he did not want Yuan Weiqing to ask about his eighth brother. But now, he was the one who asked him this question. LV Hushan waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, no, you must have asked me these questions when I was drunk. That's why you know my route. That's absolutely right. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you said it yourself. Even if you were drunk, you knew very well that this matter was very important and you would never tell anyone. Why did you change your mind now? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, that was just then. Now is now. When I said this, I said that I would not tell this secret to eighth brother because the one who was killed in Black Mountain was eighth brother's brother, sixth brother. So, in any case, I could not tell this secret to eighth brother when I was drunk. Speaking of this, LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, but you are different. Even if I was drunk, I would never guard against you. So, it must be you who asked this matter when I was drunk. There is absolutely no mistake. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, you mean that when you were drunk, you would not tell this matter to eighth brother, but you could tell this matter to me, right? LV Hushan hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said with a sneer, Yes, I would tell this secret to you, but I would never tell eighth brother because his brother's sixth brother had an accident on Black Mountain. If he knew, wouldn't it be terrible? So, I would never tell him this matter. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, but just now you said that the bees on Green Mountain were attracted by my medicine. Since I have already done this, then why do you believe me and not eighth brother? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, it's because you're smarter than eighth brother. Otherwise, how could I be fooled by you so many times without knowing it? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you are wrong. I'm not as smart as eighth brother. You see, this matter was obviously done by him, but you do not suspect him, but only me who did not do it. Tell me, is it because eighth brother is smarter than me? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, this is not because eighth brother is smarter than you, but because you have gone too far. You have tried to kill me time and time again. If it were not for my good luck, I am afraid I would have been killed by you. How could I still be standing here talking to you? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing waved his hand. LV Hushan, to be honest, your martial arts are not as good as mine. If I really had such a great hatred for you and wanted to kill you, do you think you can still stand here and talk to me? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, the reason why I can still stand here and talk to you is not because of you, but because my luck is too good. That is why I can hold on until now. Let me tell you, I will never forget the things you have done to me. That is why I fed you the wild bear's feces to let you taste the pain. When he heard this, Yuan Weiqing felt a little nauseous and hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, don't talk about that thing anymore. It is really disgusting. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you feel disgusted now, but when you were eating it, I saw that you were very happy. Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. LV Hushan, I didn't know at that time, so I was deceived by you. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, but when you found out later, why did you still eat it so happily? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, to be honest, I wanted you to take the initiative to admit it, so as to avoid hurting the friendship between the two of us. That is why I accompanied you to eat that kind of thing. LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, since you think so, I will not say anything else. You're the one who tried to kill me, right? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, I promise you that even if you admit it, I will not pursue it. Because, since you don't want to hurt our friendship, I don't want to hurt our friendship either. So, even if you admit it, it doesn't matter. Just let me know, okay? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, I've already said that I really didn't do those things you said. If I did, I would have admitted it long ago. How could I not say it until now? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan suddenly reached out and grabbed Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing, why don't you say it? Do you really want me to use tricks on you? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, let go of me. Let's talk about it. If I did it, I will admit it. But if I didn't do it, why should I admit it? Yuan Weiqing took a step back and said hurriedly, LV Hushan, think about it. I have made it very clear just now. Only you know your route. I don't know it. The people who drank with you that day were Old Eight and the others, not me. The most important thing is that after you drank the night before, you set off the next day. LV Hushan, think about it carefully. I didn't get close to you that night. How could I know your route? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, don't always doubt me. Think about it carefully. Is what I said reasonable? After our meeting, you started drinking with Eighth Brother not long after. I heard that you drank until midnight before you went back to your place. Then, when you woke up, you set off for the East County. Think about it carefully. During this process, did I have time to get close to you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. He gradually frowned and thought carefully about what happened that night. After a while, LV Hushan's frown deepened. He suddenly found that Yuan Weiqing was indeed not with him that night. After the meeting that day, it didn't take long for Old Eight to invite him to drink with a few people. LV Hushan remembered very clearly that he didn't want to go that day because he wanted to go back to prepare for his departure the next day. However, Old Eight didn't agree, so LV Hushan had no choice but to attend Old Eight's banquet. In the end, the two of them got along well and drank until late at night. As for the specific time, LV Hushan didn't know because he was sent back home that night. He was already drunk, so how could he know the time? Yuan Weiqing was right. I wasn't with him that night, but I was drinking with Old Eight. The problem was, since I wasn't with Yuan Weiqing, how did he know my route? Now, LV Hushan had completely thought it through. He was the only one who knew about his course of action. Even the other three people in the meeting didn't study his course of action. Since others didn't know, did I really reveal it? However, the biggest suspect, Yuan Weiqing, didn't have contact with me that night, and Old Eight, who was drinking with me, had a grudge against me because of his brother, Old Six. Could it be that Old Eight really took the opportunity to inquire about this news, and then after knowing my route, he began to retaliate? Thinking of this, LV Hushan suddenly found that Yuan Weiqing, who he had always suspected, didn't seem to be a suspect at all. Because Yuan Weiqing didn't know my route, he naturally couldn't sneak an attack on me. Did I really misunderstand Yuan Weiqing? In fact, he didn't do this thing. Logically speaking, he had been drinking with 8th brother that night. They had been drinking until very late. The next day, he had set off for the East County. The only person who can inquire about my route should be old 8. Yuan Weiqing didn't contact me, so he naturally couldn't inquire about the news. Could it be that 8th brother was the one behind this? Because he had harmed 6th brother on the Black Mountain, 8th brother held a grudge against him. Then, 8th brother found out about his route and ambushed him on the way. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.